Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to the Gridiron Expert. We are about to go live here in a second on the radio. I just wanted to give you guys a little bit of an introduction. This is our first live stream that we've ever done here at the Gridiron Expert. So, as some of you guys may know, I do go to college at Arkansas State University. So, yes, it is a Sunbelt school, not one of the traditional Power 5 powerhouses, but we're getting the job done and having a blast up here. So we're about to go live, like I said, on the radio here at Arkansas State. We've got our own radio show that we'll be doing. For now, the plan is to be doing this about every Tuesday. Around 3 o'clock. Sometimes it'll be pre-recorded, sometimes it'll be live just like today, but regardless, we'll set up a live stream to show to you guys on YouTube. And so as always, we appreciate y'all's support and everything that you've done here. So bank on this, and like I said, if you check our Twitter, if you go on Twitter, we always put up our updates there telling you when we're going to go live and when we're going to kind of keep up the news, everything there. You check us out on YouTube, and we'll give you some updates there as well. So right now, banking on doing this every Tuesday, maybe a couple more times a week after that. So just be on the lookout for that, and we're not live yet. You can come in. And so yeah, so like I said, we've got our own radio show. We're gonna be checking this out, and just stay tuned. So you won't be able to hear any of the music. If you want to listen to it live on the radio with the music and everything else, you can go on to Radio FX, download that app, and search for Red Wolf Radio, and that's where we'll be there. And here in a second, we're going to kick things off talking all college football, but also discussing a little bit of MLB, NFL, everything else like that. So just stay tuned. We're going to be going live here in about 5 or 6 minutes. What's up, man?
He was telling me they were having some issues with his phone up here.
Oh, yeah.
I guess it's... Let me see what it does when I try to make a call to it.
All right.
You going on at 3? So
Yeah, we're live right now, but...
It's not going to mess you up if I call this number and it starts ringing, is it?
All good.
Okay. I'm just going to try it once and I'll get out of your hair here.
All right, we got 10 people watching, so as always, appreciate your support. We'll shout out a couple of you guys on the radio here in a little bit. The traditional people that are always watching, and I've been seeing y'all's comments, so keep commenting. And if you have questions, we can do that. Obviously, we don't have a phone line or anything, but we would love to answer y'all's questions. I've got my laptop pulled up here. We've got some notes pulled up here. So we are ready to go here in about 3 or 4 minutes. So what do you guys want to talk about? We are, if you got any questions or anything else that you want to see here on the show or here in the next few minutes, doesn't matter what sport, doesn't matter what topic, it's all fair game. We're going to be here for about 2 hours. The live stream on YouTube might not last that long, but you know, we'd love for it to last that long. We'd love for it to keep going as long as possible. So we got predictions on Florida, Georgia. We got playing college football. Thank you, Eddie. As always, like I said, we'll be shouting you guys out here on the radio a little bit. And obviously anything that can make this stuff better, anything that you guys want to see later on in the future or in this segment or maybe in the next couple of weeks, always open for suggestions. And for you guys that are traditional followers, the guys that are always watching here at the Gridiron Expert, our Week 8 predictions will be coming out either tonight or tomorrow. We've got those in the works, so we had our recap come out on Sunday, back where it all started, back at the Gridiron headquarters, as Emperor of Rome said. And but we're going to be having our predictions coming out here pretty soon as well. So make sure you stay on the lookout for that. More videos are going to be cranked out. Saw you, Mark. Thanks for commenting. Hope everything's going well. Trying to follow in your footsteps, making some solid live streams here. So I'm really excited to get things started and rolling again. And I give a lot of credit to. I want to thank Mitch Thayer for going out there. He suggested starting to do some live streams, which is something we had thought about for a little while, but really had never had the time to do. So now this is just a perfect opportunity to seize the chance to do some live streams and really to really interact more with you guys, because I don't really discuss with you guys in the comments. So I'm excited to get things going here. So we're about 2 minutes away, give or take. We're going to get some music going here in a second, something y'all won't be able to hear unless you go into the app, and then we'll start doing some discussions. So keep bringing those questions. We got Florida, Georgia predictions. That's about it. So we'll dive into those in a little bit and then go from there. How's it going, Mitch? What's going on, man?
What, like the one like over here on the wall, so over here. Because like the one on the wall, we kind of get what's happening there, and then that one we get what's happening over here. That's That's what I was thinking.
Here in a second, we'll show you what we've got going over here on the board and on the computer and everything like that. Give you a little behind-the-scenes look at what we've got going on. All right, we're less than a minute out. Let's get this thing rolling. Excited to get things going. 2 hours, guys. We got 2 hours up here on the air. Feel free to stay for as long as you want. Your views are always appreciated. We'll have a couple breaks in there as well, which is when I'll talk to you guys, but not talking on the radio, so that's going to be good to have as well. So, all right, let's do it. Welcome back to the Gridiron Expert. My name is Alex Galbraith here at Arkansas State University on a very cold and rainy Tuesday afternoon. This is a new thing for me. I'm excited to be here. We're talking pretty much all things sport. Our main forte and our main focus is always going to be college football, always has been and always will be, but we're going to dive a little bit in today into the NFLs, maybe some college basketball. NBA season starts tonight. We'll dive a little bit into that. And of course, the MLB postseason. We got the ALCS and the NLCS going on right now. We are live streaming this on YouTube at The Gridiron Expert, where we do our main focus on college football. Our main goal right now is to get to 2,000 subscribers by the end of the year, so we would appreciate that. And go check us out on Twitter at Gridiron Expert for some more behind-the-scenes news and some updates there. But right now, we are on Red Wolf Radio here at Arkansas State University. And if you want to listen to this, go on to Radio FX, download that app, and search for Red Wolf Radio, and you'll be able to talk a little bit and hear what we've got to say. And if you want to go check out our live stream and ask some questions, we're going to be here too. So we're going to jump right on in, kick things off early here, talking on college football. Like I said, that's our main forte, and that's where we're going to really start kicking things off. And so right now we've got we're going to break down the top 12 teams right now in college football. And right now, of course, you've got Alabama, Ohio State, Clemson, and Notre Dame rounding out your top four. So if the playoffs were to happen today, you would have Alabama facing off against Notre Dame, a rematch of that 2012 National Championship game. And then Ohio State versus Clemson, a rematch of, I believe it was 2 years ago when the two squads faced off in the playoff, and Clemson shutting out the Buckeyes 31-0. So those are your top four teams right now, and obviously I think those are your top four teams in the nation, in my opinion. LSU's right on the outside looking in at number 5. So things are looking good for the Tigers, especially after that very dominant performance they had this past week against Georgia, and we'll touch a little bit on that here a little bit. So Michigan's at 6, Texas at 7, Georgia at 8, falling from number 2 to number 8 after that loss to LSU, Oklahoma 9, Central Florida 10, Florida 11, and Oregon 12. And those are really, in my opinion, that's kind of where the line's been drawn for potential college football playoff contenders. It kind of ends there with Oregon. I know West Virginia dropped a couple spots after their loss to Iowa State. A very dominant performance by the Cyclones there. Sure, maybe they could be considered contenders there, but I think it kind of ends with Oregon in that top 12. I think those are your top 12 contenders for potentially vying for a spot in the college football playoff. And we're only in week 8, guys. I mean, I know we're a little over halfway through the college football season, but there's still a lot of football left to be played and still a lot of time for some shakeups to happen. You know, we haven't even hit November, and I always break that down, saying November is when crazy things happen in college football. That's when all the upsets happen, and really you start to separate the pretenders from the contenders and see who really could be the best team in the nation. So one topic I do want to discuss for a little bit, just for a second. It's always fun to talk about. Is it realistic? I don't know. Maybe, maybe not. But let's talk about Central Florida for a second. You know, a lot of my friends like to remind me around here at Arkansas State that the last time Central Florida lost was to Arkansas State, I believe, in 2016 in that bowl game, in the Cure Bowl. Arkansas State won that game, and Central Florida hasn't lost since. But they're number 10 in the nation, and should we consider the Knights to be college football playoff contenders? And you know, a lot of people will criticize their resume, and they'll say that the resume isn't good enough to vie for a spot. So right now, their resume consists of a blowout win over Pittsburgh, which is a Power 5 opponent, not one of your major powerhouses like they faced off against Auburn in the Peach Bowl last year, but still a solid win over a Power 5 opponent. They had a solid win on the road last week against Memphis, a very emotional win, a very heartfelt win, winning that game by just 1 point. And they still now have 2 ranked opponents on their schedule. As of right now, they have number 20 Cincinnati, who is undefeated, and number 21 South Florida, who is undefeated. And that game will be on the road. And if you remember last year's game between the Knights and the Bulls, that was one of the best games of the entire college football season last year. So their resume is good enough. 2 ranked opponents, solid teams, if they can get both a win over those, and then they'll probably face off against Memphis or Houston or somebody in the American Athletic Conference Championship game. So if Central Florida were to run the table, once again finish the season undefeated, could you make a case for them making the top 4? Could you make a case for them making the college football playoff? I can't see that happening just because of the resume, just because of the teams they beat. I mean, you know, you look at the teams that we just mentioned that are in there. We've got LSU's in there, Michigan's in there, Texas, and obviously your top 4 with Alabama, Clemson, Ohio State, Notre Dame. One of those teams is bound to slip up, and I think obviously has a better shot than an undefeated Central Florida. That obviously a hot topic of debate. You know, they like to claim themselves as the defending national champions, and they proved themselves to be one of the better schools last year. I mean, beating Auburn, that wasn't a fluke. That was a very impressive victory, and I've been very surprised with the way that Josh Heupel has come in and commanded this Knights team. You know, you lose Scott Frost and you lose some of the big-time starters they had last year, one of your defensive leaders and Shaquem Griffin. You know, you think about, you know, the players that they lost, that losing your coaching staff, but Josh Heupel has done a great job. And obviously, when you keep a solid quarterback like McKenzie Milton there, you're bound to do extremely well. So that's just an interesting topic for me. Can you consider Central Florida to be college football playoff contenders? Those of you that are watching the live stream, I'd appreciate. I'd like to hear your input on that. Do you think that they should be considered that? We've got a couple here. We've got UCF as one of the luckiest teams in college football. That came from our bud Mitch Thayer. We've got Go Knights, obviously, some fan there. Comic Dude 45, nice to see you. Nice to see you here. A frequent commenter there. So that's something to keep our eye on as the season goes on. I don't think Central Florida is going to slip up at all. If they do, I think it's going to come in the season finale against South Florida. So is there a chance they could slip up? Remember, just a couple of years ago, we had Houston that rose to number 6 in the nation after beating Oklahoma. Was a bit of a roll, and you know, they slipped up. They lost to Navy, then they lost to SMU, then they beat Louisville somehow down the stretch. So it's possible that we could see this be another instance like Houston just 2 years ago. But this UCF team is different. I think they are a legitimate contender, but whether or not how their committee ranks them in a couple weeks in their first college football playoff rankings, that will be a huge factor in determining whether or not they can be a potential college football playoff contender. And so we've got UCF is overrated. UCF is a very solid team, not a contender. And I can agree with that. They are a very solid team. I think there are many Power 5 teams that couldn't defeat the Knights right now. We saw that. I don't think they would have lost to North Carolina. They didn't lose to Pittsburgh. I think some of these better teams in some of the better conferences, Big Ten, SEC even, wouldn't be able to beat Central Florida right now. But I agree. They're probably just not to the point where they can be considered college football playoff contenders. And let's see, Emperor of Rome, nice to see you there. Always a frequent commenter. Love hearing from him. He says, I think if UCF wins out, they should be in the top 4. And many people will make a case for that. Many people will make a case that they should be involved in the top 4 if they win out. That's back-to-back undefeated season, guys. That's very difficult to do unless you're Alabama. I mean, that's in any team really. Alabama even, it's difficult to go back-to-back undefeated seasons. So, but it's just the quality of play and the quality of opponents. That's where things come into play. So who knows? Will UCF be college football playoff contenders, or will the committee accept them if they finish the season undefeated? We'll have to find out. That is definitely something to keep our eye on. So one thing I want to talk about a little bit now, we touched a little bit on that. We touched a little bit on the top 12. Let's talk about the biggest disappointments in college football season so far. We'll talk about the disappointments, and then we'll talk about the surprises. We'll look at the two on both ends there. And you can make a case for tons of teams for being both disappointments and surprises. But we'll start with the negatives this time. Usually on the show we start off with the positives. We'll start with the negatives this time. For me, one of the biggest disappointments has been Auburn. And in my last video, for those of you that watched our Week 7 recap, we addressed Auburn as being a team that was certainly trending down. The Tigers were supposed to be the the biggest threat to Alabama in the SEC West. They were supposed to be the biggest competitor. They beat Alabama last year. They made the SEC championship game, lost to Georgia ultimately. But with the solid crew of starters they had returning, you had Jarrett Stidham back at quarterback, Gus Malzahn signing an extension for that. Auburn's sitting here at 4-3 right now, losing to LSU, which is excusable, understandable. LSU is a very, very solid team. Losing to Mississippi State. And even though that game was on the road, they probably should have won that game. I mean, Mississippi State is a very solid team with one of the better quarterbacks, I think, in the entire nation, certainly in the SEC, and Nick Fitzgerald, one of the better dual threats at least. But losing that game by 14 points, it wasn't even close. I think it was 23-9. I mean, they didn't even crack double digits there. And then this past weekend, where it really took a turn for the worse, and really, I think it's going to end up costing Gus Malzahn his job, losing to Tennessee at home at Jordan Hare Stadium. You lose 30-24. To Tennessee and Jeremy Pruitt, a first-year head coach. A Tennessee team that I did not expect a whole lot of this season. I still don't expect a whole lot of their look. It's an impressive win. Upsets happen. It is college football. This is a Tennessee team that, when on paper, was way, way worse than Auburn. And I don't know what you can credit it for Auburn being head hanging low after that loss to Mississippi State. You can blame it on it being an early game at 11 o'clock. I don't care what you want to say, but Auburn has been one of the most disappointing teams in the entire nation. I guarantee it. I'm 95% sure on this one. Gus Malzahn will be out of a job at the end of this year, and that's going to be shocking. Some people will say, well, why? Why would he be out of a job? You look at what happened with Auburn this year, signed into a $50 million extension over 7 years, and he was very close to taking the Arkansas job. I think it was also 7 years for $49 million. Auburn fans are ruthless, and people in the SEC want instant gratification, want to compete. And Auburn, I get it. You're tired of being the second best team in the state of Alabama behind the Crimson Tide. You want to be able to compete at that high enough level to compete against your rival and compete for SEC titles and national championships, and I get that. And Gus Malzahn is just not bringing that to the table right now. Blame it on injuries, blame it on whatever you want to say, but in the end, that's not good enough. They're 4-3, and they haven't even played Georgia and Alabama yet. So you're looking at a 7-5 season for Auburn, maybe 6-6. I mean, they got to play Ole Miss this week, I think, on the road, an Ole Miss team that has a very dangerous offense, and obviously going up against an Auburn defense that allowed Tennessee and their mediocre offense to score 30 points. So they definitely have a lot of work cut out for them, and I think if I was Gus Malzahn, I'd definitely be sweating a little bit. That seat's on fire, in my opinion. Second team that we've got disappointing right now is Wisconsin. I'm going to talk about Wisconsin a little bit. A team that went undefeated last year before ultimately losing to Ohio State in the Big Ten championship game. They win that game. They're in the college football playoff. And unfortunately, they lost, but then won the Orange Bowl in dominating fashion over Miami. The Badgers is 4-2 right now with losses to BYU and Michigan. And had they just lost to Michigan, they would not be a disappointment. They would not be trending down. They would still be, in my opinion, Big Ten title contenders and college football playoff contenders. Because Michigan's not a bad team. They're number 6 in the nation for a reason. They haven't lost since the opening week loss to Notre Dame. But that BYU loss at home, that's what has crushed Wisconsin and prevented them from being anything relevant on the national stage. With a team with an experienced quarterback in Alex Hornibrook, an experienced running back in Jonathan Taylor, and a defense that is usually very solid, especially as it has been the past couple of years under Paul Chryst. The fact that they're 4-2 right now, it shocks me. Could they run the table and win out? Sure, it's not going to happen. Don't feel like that's going to happen. And right now, they might not even win their division in the Big Ten and make the Big Ten championship game. Northwestern's gone on a little bit of a roll since their disappointing start. Iowa's still a competitor. Wisconsin has already beat Iowa, but still. So Wisconsin's got their work cut out for them in a year and in a division that should have been theirs for the taking. Their biggest threat being Iowa, and they took care of business. So they definitely have some work cut out for them, and a very disappointing year for them. And like I said, in a season that they were expected to really compete for a Big Ten championship and maybe even making the college football playoff. Penn State, another team. I'm hating on. I don't mean to be hating on the Big Ten because the next team is also a Big Ten team. But we heard all off season about how maybe the Big Ten would be better than the SEC for once. They were like, let's look at the talent. We got Ohio State, we got Penn State, we got Wisconsin, we've got Michigan, we got Michigan State. You looked at they named all these teams in the Big Ten and thought, well, if you look over the SEC, you've got Alabama, you've got Georgia, maybe Auburn. And at the time, those were the only 3 teams that we felt very confident in being legitimate contenders. Obviously, Mississippi State's played well. LSU has surprised some people. But Penn State, 4-2, losses to Ohio State and Michigan State. Not bad losses until you really break them down. Let's look at the Ohio State loss first. This game still bothers the heck out of me. And I'm not even a Penn State fan. I'm not. Look, I want them to do well. Hope they do well. I don't have anything against many teams. But Penn State, that loss to Ohio State, you were up by, 13 points in the first quarter, 12 points in the fourth quarter, and then they blew the lead. I think they lost like a 27-26, 4th and 5. The worst play call I've ever seen in my entire life. The worst play call. And everybody can make cases for why they may have called. James Franklin, his staff called that play. But if you go back and watch that game, Penn State lined up, called a timeout. Then Ohio State called a timeout. Then Penn State called another timeout, or whatever the order was. But regardless, there were 3 timeouts called in between that 4th down play and the demise of what happened. And Penn State, Trace McSorley was burning up that Ohio State defense. They couldn't stop him, whether it was through the air or on the ground. And they decided to do a draw up the middle on 4th and 5. And again, their leading rusher had, 38 yards on like 19 carries or something like that. It was the worst and most confusing play call I've ever seen in my life. And I feel for Penn State fans because that was a game they should have won at home and a game that really would have changed their entire season. Despite that loss to Ohio State, though, they were still college football playoff contenders. They were still Big Ten title contenders. Ohio State might slip up somewhere. And then they get a bye week and they come back home and face Michigan State. Back home, mind you. A Michigan State team that just last week, in Week 7, lost by 10 points to a mediocre Northwestern team. By 10 points, 2 possessions. And Penn State blows that lead. Well, they have 21-7, something like that, or 17-7, whatever it was, and loses to the Spartans late, like 25 seconds left remaining in the game. So back-to-back home losses for the Nittany Lions. Once again, out of the college football playoff race. Hell, they're out of the they're out of the Big Ten title race now because Ohio State's not going to slip up twice. And James Franklin's a heck of a coach. I respect the heck out of him. I love his passion for the game and the intensity for Penn State athletics. He has come in and really brought this program back to relevancy. You know, after the whole Jerry Sandusky and Joe Paterno things that went down, Penn State was, they went on their probation. He had, 4-year bowl ban, something like that. Things weren't looking good. He came in and turned them around. But that's back-to-back years now that he has lost back-to-back games against Ohio State and Michigan State and cost them a shot at the college football playoff. Very good and talented Penn State team. So that's very unfortunate for the Nittany Lions, and I feel for them. And then we're going to continue on to the Big Ten, Nebraska. And we've seen a couple comments here. We'll address those here in a little bit. But Nebraska, 0-6 to start off the Scott Frost era, and a little bit later in the show we'll address the new coaches and the way they've been performing and the way they've got their teams built around them. Some have done better than others, certainly, and we'll address that here in a little bit. But Nebraska, 0-6, they're losing games by an average of 15 points. They're losing their games by an average of 2 possessions each game. They've had some close calls. I think they probably should be 3-3 right now. You look at Colorado, that was a close game. I think it was 33-28 in the Buffalo's favor. Losing to Troy, you never should lose to a Sun Belt squad at home, especially when you're Nebraska. Nebraska having so many sellout home games, being extremely talented in the past. I know we knew this was going to be a rebuilding year. I wasn't expecting Scott Frost to come in here and make them, playoff contenders, but still losing to Troy at home, kind of inexcusable. And then this past week, Northwestern losing that game, heartbreaking fashion, by a field goal in overtime. So that is by far one of the bigger disappointments. I don't think anybody in Nebraska saw this coming. I know I didn't see it coming. I didn't expect. I think I had Nebraska at 6-6 on the year, and I thought that was fairly respectable. But 0-6, it's been a rough year for the Cornhuskers. I think Scott Frost is the man for the job. I just think he bit off a little bit more than he could chew. He did extremely well at Central Florida, like we talked about earlier, and he's transitioning all the way from the American Athletic to the Big Ten, one of the better conferences in the Power 5, going against some of the better schools in the entire nation with Ohio State and Michigan and Penn State, guys like that. So I get it. But 0-6, not looking good. Surely Nebraska's going to snag a win here sometime. I don't see them going 0-12. Look, if UCLA can win a game, surely Nebraska can. So, but it's been a very disappointing year so far for the Cornhuskers. Take a look at some of our comments here right now. We got Harrison Brown saying that LSU is his biggest surprise. He said he saw it coming, though, when they kept getting predicted in the preseason to go anywhere from 6-6 to 8-4. They finally have a competent quarterback with a traditional defense. He was not surprised at his Georgia Bulldogs loss. Let's see what else we've got here. North Carolina needs to step up. That's from Eric 3P. Comic Dude 45, 16 straight home victories, followed by 2 straight home losses. That's baffling. I agree with that there. Let's see what else we've got here. We got a couple. Everybody's kind of jabbing at each other in the comments. I always love that. And as always, go check us out on YouTube for our live stream right now, a little behind the scenes look. And you can always comment with some of our other viewers. We've got about 13, 14 people watching right now. And obviously, that's not too bad for right there in the middle of the day. So we're going to jump into our biggest surprises before we go into the break. And we'll address all those real quick. And obviously, I could go on and on with the disappointments. I could go on and on with the surprises. There are so many teams that you could go on here. I'm just trying to narrow it down to about 4 or 5 for each category. And like Harrison just said a second ago, 100% LSU, my biggest surprise. I had them going 6-6 in the preseason. Got heavily criticized for it, and that's fine. I accept responsibility for that. The Tigers are 6-1 though right now, with their lone loss coming on the road to a Florida team that's ranked number 11 in the nation right now, beating LSU, beating a decent Vanderbilt team, having to come from behind in a very chippy game against Vanderbilt. Dan Mullen and Derek Mason going at it on the sidelines. Their players going at it. It was a very heated game against the Vanderbilt. But LSU, solid wins versus Miami, Auburn, and Georgia. And if you look at that Miami and Auburn game now, they don't look as impressive. Miami already a 2-loss team, losing to LSU, losing to Virginia this past week. You look at Auburn, obviously a team that we said was one of the bigger disappointments, 4-3, losing 3 SEC losses already to LSU, who they Tennessee, and guys like that, the Mississippi State. But LSU, so the resume might not be as strong as some may say, but they deserve to be number 5 in the nation. I will agree with that. They absolutely deserve that. Their next game coming up, though, at home against Mississippi State, where they're only 6.5-point favorites on the spread. And I know it's early. It's, Tuesday? Still has time to fluctuate either way. But I was a little taken aback by that because LSU coming off a 20-point victory over Georgia, the number 2 team in the nation, a game that many people thought that Georgia was going to win, maybe it would be close, but that they were going to take care of business, and they did not look like the number 2 team in the country. Although, interesting, I did see a fact out there that said Georgia, if you remember last year in early November, got annihilated by Auburn, blowout. It was 40-17, ran the table after that, made the national championship game. So maybe all it took was a big blowout loss for Kirby Smart and his Bulldogs to kind of wake up, and maybe they'll run the table and be fine. They're still, I think, the heavy favorite in the SEC East. But LSU, Ed Orgeron's come in here, came into the season, I think, on the hot seat, didn't really know what to expect with the people that they lost, the questions at quarterback. I know they got the transfer in Joe Burrow. We were a little concerned about that, and he has done a phenomenal job. That defense has been the anchor for this team, 100%. The offense, though, has picked up the slack. And like I think it was Harrison said a second ago, a competent quarterback in Joe Burrow is just what they needed to get the ball rolling. Because we didn't know what to expect after losing people like Darius Geis and Leonard Fournette. You take away that solid running back that they've been used to having. Now LSU has a decent pass game, which makes them very dangerous and certainly a contender in the SEC West and on the national stage. And I think it's November 3rd. We got that big showdown against Alabama that could potentially determine the SEC West right there. If LSU wins that game, they would both have 1 conference loss, assuming they both take care of business this week. And, LSU could be the representative out of the West in the SEC championship game. So that's going to be a huge, huge game. But credit to LSU, and I do take responsibility for my 6-6 prediction that I had in the offseason. What are you going to do? We got Kentucky, staying in the SEC, 5-1. Kentucky, one of your traditional basketball schools. And they're sitting at 5-1 right now with their lone loss coming to Texas A&M. A solid team that has shown a lot of improvement since Jimbo Fisher arrived in College Station. I saw a video the other day saying that Texas A&M is finally finishing games. They're finally closing things out in the fourth quarter, with the exception of that Clemson game, which some say was a little rigged or a little skeptical with the referee calls. I get it. But you get the lone loss to Texas A&M in overtime, I should add. They went on the road in the Swamp and beat Florida. The Swamp, one of the more difficult places to play in the entire nation. So a very impressive win by Kentucky there. And then they went and just annihilated Mississippi State and took care of business against South Carolina. So Kentucky's got a very impressive resume. And they're still ranked, top 15, top 20. Things are still looking up for them. So I've been very impressed with them. Bringing in Terry Wilson at quarterback, I was concerned. I was a big fan of Steven Johnson at the time when he was with Kentucky. But obviously, you can't take anything away from Benny Snell. obviously one of the better running backs in the entire nation, certainly in the SEC. I'm not going to go as far to say he's a Heisman contender, but he has been the anchor and the leader for this Wildcats team. He's their workhorse, and he has done extremely well for the Wildcats, and I think a major part of the reason they're sitting at 5-1 and ranked nationally. And so this SEC East is getting pretty dicey. You got Kentucky who's beating Florida who's beaten LSU. You got Georgia in there who lost to LSU, and Georgia has yet to face Kentucky or Florida. So this is going to get really interesting, I think, down the stretch. I'm very excited for both of those games that will really shape and kind of mold how the standings will look in the SEC East. Another team we got trending up, we got like two more, or biggest surprise, we got two more, we'll take a break. We got Washington State sitting at 5-1. Their lone loss so far to USC by 3 points. And, you know, I look at this Washington State team, but their resume to me is not that impressive. They're now nationally ranked. They're number 25 in the country. College Game Day is going there this weekend in Week 8 to pull them in for the first time ever for their showdown against the 12th ranked Oregon Ducks. USC, not a very solid team in my opinion, not the way they've looked in the past, and we knew, and I knew, I think many other people knew, that they weren't going to be the way they've looked in the past, like when they had Sam Darnold and a lot of their other huge playmakers. You know, they had Juju years ago. So, you know, this is not the same USC team, but still impressive to go into the Coliseum and almost pull out a win. That's a very difficult place to play. But Washington State's best win so far is Utah, and they won that game by 4. And Utah, a team that I think is one of the better teams in the Pac-12 South, has a chance to win the Pac-12 South for the first time. But other than that, that's their best win. They don't have a super high-quality win over a solid ranked opponent or anything like that. So I do have them as a bigger surprise because I didn't expect them to be doing this well as of right now, sitting at 5-1. Credit to Mike Leach and his team and what they've done there. But I think we're going to have a lot of questions answered this Saturday with that game against Oregon, and we'll address that here in a little bit. That's going to be huge. They pull off a win against Oregon, who just pulled off a win against Washington. Washington State is looking legit, and I'm very excited for that because I was not expecting that out of this Cougars team. That was one of the least experienced teams in the Pac-12 coming into this season. And then also, staying in the Pac-12, we got Colorado sitting at 5-1, a lone loss also to USC. Wins at Nebraska, a very difficult place to play, got a win there, and a win against Arizona State and Herm Edwards, a team that I just like watching and kind of like to get behind just because I like Herm Edwards, honestly. He's a heck of a coach. He's fun to watch. So a very impressive win for the Buffaloes there, and what Mike McIntyre's doing with this Buffalo squad. You know, 2 years ago, got into the Pac-12 championship game. Last year had a bit of a drop-off, and this year they're back to being contenders. We're nationally ranked this past week. Before losing to USC in not very impressive fashion. They kind of got blown out in that game. But Colorado, a team that has the chance to finish with, 3 losses, and go to a very, very solid bowl game, and maybe, if they're lucky, win their division in the Pac-12 and make the Pac-12 championship game. So I'm very intrigued to see how all this plays out. But they've certainly been one of my surprise teams coming in to this season. So what we're going to do here in a little bit, we're going to break down, we will break down the biggest Week 8 games in college football. We got a list of them. And as you all know, when we're on YouTube, we break this stuff down. We take our top 5 games and kind of break those down. We share our predictions. We're going to do that here, but with even more games. So make sure you stay tuned, and we'll be right back on The Gridiron Expert. Alright guys, let's take a look at these comments real quick off the air for a little bit. What do y'all got to say? Biggest surprise. Biggest disappointment for me has been Florida State. I agree with that, Emperor of Rome, 100%. They've been a major disappointment. College Football Dojo, good to see you, man. Always good working with you and talking with you. Yeah, finally started getting those live streams done. Thank you. It's been a while, so I'm glad to get those going. Hopefully we'll be doing this every week, like I said, every Tuesday, give or take, stuff like that. What else we got? A couple suspensions, according to Harrison Brown. Got that going on.
You off there?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, that's fine. Sorry. I need to upload something real quick while you're taking a break.
All right. Yeah, we're live streaming. That's all right.
Okay. Sorry.
You need to share?
No.
All right.
As long as you don't mind me leaning over you.
Oh, good. Emperor of Rome, big surprise to me was Notre Dame. Knew they were good, didn't know they were this good. Agree with that. I can agree with that. Although I had them going, 10-2 to start the season, and I think I changed the predictions. So I have an 11-1. Now I can see them going undefeated with that lone loss right now being to USC, but USC has not looked impressive to me, so probably going to switch that up a little bit. Mitch there, talking to Mina. Do you think Iowa State will beat the Texas Tech Red Raiders? We'll talk a little bit about that in a little bit. Kentucky's look great. Let's see what else. Mitch is exactly right. Take that loss away from Texas A&M, and Kentucky's a top 10 team, 100%. Without, they don't lose to Texas A&M. They're top 10 and really looking like the biggest threat, I think, to Georgia, I think, in the SEC East. Let's see what else. Oklahoma losing to TCU on the road. I don't know, Mina. We'll talk about that. That's one of our big games. Comic Dude, yeah, let's touch on that. It's Texas back. We'll touch on that in the next segment. And then NCIS Fanatic, nice to see you, man. What are we going to do without Nick Bosa? Good question. Good question. We'll touch on that a little bit. We've got a lot of college football coverage here. Might not dive too much into the other topics we were talking about because y'all are bringing some great questions and great points. So we'll definitely touch on that. So good to see you guys engaging a little bit. All right.
Because I'm almost done. All right, it's all yours.
All right.
Thanks.
No worries. Yeah, and I'll take the moment to apologize now for the hecticness that's going on here in the studio. We've got a lot of people coming in, technical difficulties, moving in some, trying to get the phone lines open at some point, trying to move those in, so we're going to mess with that. We're downloading some new music. For those of you that are actually listening on the radio, we got those going on, so just to keep in mind there what we've got. William Miller, do I want to work at ESPN someday? That is that's the plan. That's certainly the plan. We're making our way up there. Internships and radio experience and broadcast experience, stuff like that. That would certainly be the goal, is to get up to ESPN and work with the big dogs someday in the big leagues. So, yes, and Comic Dude said I should. So I appreciate that, Comic Dude. 45 always. That's definitely the plan. So hopefully with the education we're getting here, some of you don't know, Arkansas State's supposed to be one of the better communication, broadcast stuff schools in the nation, or not in the nation, in Arkansas, which I wasn't planning on going out of state. You know how college goes. So we took what we can get. We're gonna seize the opportunity and see where it goes, see where we go, see where God leads us. So we're gonna take that. So appreciate all you guys that are watching. Got some decent crowds and decent comments. We got some decent feed going. All right. Based on how my Texas Longhorns have been playing, they are back. I don't know. We'll talk about it. We're gonna talk about the biggest Week 8 games, and then we'll talk about some of y'all comments that are coming on. Maybe address some of the predictions that you guys want us to talk about. So. And welcome back to the Gridiron Expert. My name is Alex Galbraith. We are continuing our discussion on college football, everything college football, Heisman race, predictions, surprises, disappointments, college football playoff contenders, and more. You can go check me out on YouTube at The Gridiron Expert and on Twitter at Gridiron Expert for some behind-the-scenes news and predictions and analysis. It's a lot of what we do over at The Gridiron Expert, breaking down college football and some of the better news, predictions, analysis, I think, on YouTube. So we always appreciate y'all's support and subscribing and likes and comments. It's always a great time over there. So we would appreciate that. When we came back from break, I said we were going to talk about the biggest Week 8 games of college football, and that's exactly what we're going to do. And for those of you that are frequent watchers on our YouTube channel, you see we usually have the big board up there, and we write down our 5 biggest games of the week, and we predict those games, analyze those games, and as always, give our Heisman watch. And that video will be coming out later on this week as well. So we're going to kick things off for Week 8. And we'll start, we got a whole list and we got plenty of time. Number 6, Michigan at number 24, Michigan State. I'd like to hear some comments on this game. We had a guy mention it a second ago. Big time rivalry game. History of being an exciting game. We all know about that botched punt by Michigan, a chance to beat Michigan State. in that year, and just a wild ending, one of the wildest endings in college football I've ever seen. This week, renewing that rivalry. And, Michigan State's just one of those teams for me that I'm scared to pick them now. They were a team back in the preseason that I was extremely confident in being a college football playoff contender and really competing in the Big Ten. And they've just disappointed. And then right when I think they're not going to be relevant, they make themselves relevant again. They kick things off with a scary season opening win over Utah State, lose on the road to Arizona State, and a decent Sun Devil team led by Herm Edwards. And then they lose to Northwestern by 10, a mediocre Northwestern team. They haven't even faced the difficultness of their schedule. Then they go into Happy Valley and steal a win against Penn State. It just doesn't make sense to me what Mark D'Antonio and his squad is doing. They're out of the running for any chance at a college football playoff. They could win out, and they aren't going to go. They're a 2-loss team, and they don't have good losses. There are such things as good losses that can benefit you on a resume, and Michigan State doesn't have that. But then you got Michigan, on the other hand, a team that just annihilated Wisconsin this past week. Was it 38-13, something like that, 38-20? And a team that hasn't lost since week 1. And I think we tend to forget about that. They're number 6 in the nation, guys. They're 2 spots away from being in the college football playoff. And we're not talking about them that much. And I get it, Michigan always gets overhyped sometimes. They end up crashing or they end up choking or whatever you want to say. But if I'm initially picking this game, I'm inclined to lean towards Michigan State in this one, despite what some people may say, despite the hate I might receive. But I would like to think that Mark D'Antonio is finally going to find some consistency in the Spartans team. You're coming off a huge win on the road against Penn State, one of the more difficult places to play in the nation, one of the better teams in the entire nation, regardless of their 2 losses. And you're back at home against your rival in Michigan, a Michigan team that tie off a Wisconsin win. And like I said, only lost to a very, very good Notre Dame team. I'm inclined to pick Michigan State in this one, and we'll address that later on when we do our actual YouTube video. But this is going to be a very interesting game early in the morning. I think it's 11 o'clock kickoff. So this is one you got to keep your eye on. Bigger game for Michigan, more so than it is for Michigan State, without a doubt. Number 9, Oklahoma at TCU. This was a game that we had some people talking about a second ago, talking about is it possible that TCU could beat Oklahoma? And Oklahoma, are they going to be, are they okay after that Texas loss that they suffered just 2 weeks ago? 48-45 in a just thrilling shootout game, down 21 points, battled all the way back, and still lost to Texas by 3. Texas, as we all know, what are they, 7th in the nation now? And Oklahoma, number 9. So these are 2 teams that could potentially meet again in the Big 12 championship game. I'm going Oklahoma all in on this one. TCU just lost at home to Texas Tech, who's a good team. Do not get me wrong. Texas Tech has been, I could have thrown them up on the surprises because I think they've played extremely well. For Cliff Kingsbury, I said at the beginning of the season that I figured if they struggled, Cliff Kingsbury would be out of a job, and they've definitely surprised me and risen to the occasion. But I think Oklahoma's going to take care of this TCU team because this is not the TCU team that we've seen in the past. They are not what we're used to seeing, a Gary Patterson-led team. So I think Oklahoma goes in. They're only favored by 7.5 right now, but I think they take care of business. TCU, difficult place to play. Gary Patterson will have his team ready. Historically, these games have been fairly close. Past couple of years, they haven't. I think Oklahoma handles this one fairly easily. I think they're hungry, they're angry, and Kyler Murray. All you got to say. Kyler Murray is so dangerous and certainly a Heisman contender. Number 1, Alabama at Tennessee, the 3rd Saturday in October. Obviously a big time, obviously a big game. Tennessee, high off of that Auburn win, doesn't matter. Alabama's going to go in here and just annihilate the Volunteers. And I hate to say that, but really I don't see a team in the nation that's going to beat Alabama this season. And, credit to Tennessee and Jeremy Pruitt for what they did at Jordan-Hare Stadium last weekend. But Alabama, it just seems unstoppable. Tua Tagovailoa has yet to throw an interception. You think about that. I think, if I'm correct, has yet to play in the 4th quarter. You think about that. So Tennessee, home field advantage, it doesn't matter. Alabama's like 30-point favorites. They're going to go in and take care of business. Not betting on that game right now. Not going to put any money on that spread line right now. But Alabama's going to take care of business there. But it's always fun to have a big rivalry game like that. Colorado at number 15, Washington, where Washington's only favored by 15.5 points. Coming off, both these teams fresh off a loss. Colorado losing to USC on the road, Washington losing to Oregon on the road, a game that I actually did predict back in the preseason and one that I really wanted to stick with because I had a lot of faith in Justin Herbert and his squad to get the job done against a very talented Washington team, both offensively and defensively. I feel like the 15.5 points is almost too low for this game. Colorado has impressed me. They've played extremely well. I had them up on surprises, but it's on the road. Washington's coming off a loss. The only reason that I think this could be beneficial towards Colorado is Washington's down on themselves. Washington was supposed to be the Pac-12 contender for the playoff. They were supposed to really compete for the college football playoff this season, much like they did 2 years ago. This was the year. You got seniors and Jake Browning at quarterback and Myles Gaskin at running back and a very solid defense, and they just choked. Losing to Auburn, not a big deal. Not looking good now, the way Auburn's been playing. And then you lose to Oregon. Now they got 2 losses. They're 15th in the nation. They're not making the college football playoff. Even if they win out and win the Pac-12, they're not making it. So Washington, will their morale stay up? Will they still try to be? I mean, they're going to try to play and get the win. But, how motivated are these guys going to be? How motivated will Chris Peterson get his squad? I'm taking Washington this one. Might be closer than some expect. Who knows? Number 16, North Carolina State. Number 3, Clemson. This game has had some thrillers in the past. I think it was just last year, actually, that was a very, very exciting game. But North Carolina State, to me, has yet to face a super difficult test. They're number 16 in the nation. They're a good team. Don't get me wrong. They're very impressive. Ryan Finley, one of the better and more accurate passers, I think, in all of college football. But their big-time game that they played, that had they won, I would have felt more confident in them, was West Virginia. And that game got canceled due to the Hurricanes. And nothing you can do about that. But I'm picking Clemson in this one, despite all the quarterback controversies, losing Kelly Bryant to transfer, and sticking in Trevor Lawrence. Travis Etienne has been playing extremely well at the running back position. I think he's going to keep this. I think it's going to keep this up. I think Clemson rolls at home over a nationally ranked North Carolina State team that is good, but just not good enough. Although they have played well against Clemson, like I said, in years past, whether it's at North Carolina State or at Clemson. Number 22, Mississippi State. Number 5, LSU. LSU, as I mentioned earlier, was one of my bigger surprise teams. Only 6.5-point favorites going into this game. And Mississippi State jumping back into the rankings this week, and rightfully so. I get it. But we are talking about Death Valley here. We're talking about an LSU team that just last week in Death Valley annihilated the number 2 team in the country in Georgia by 20 points. This is also a Mississippi State team that lost by 21 to Kentucky and lost by a touchdown, only mustering 6 points against Florida, who's a very good team, but not good enough, I don't think. So 6.5 points to me just seems a little low for this game. This is a trap game. Was it like 4 years ago when Dak Prescott was there, went into Death Valley, took care of LSU. Historically, Mississippi State and LSU have had some very classic matchups, some close ones, but also historically you've seen a bunch of blowouts. Just like last year when I predicted Mississippi State to beat LSU on the road, and everybody thought I was crazy, stupid. And they won that game, 37-7? If Nick Fitzgerald plays like he did last year against his LSU defense, then this is going to be a much closer game than I think any of us would expect. But it's at Death Valley. It's at night. LSU is high off of their win against Georgia. Ed Orgeron's not going to let this one slip at all. LSU is going to take care of business in this one and continue to show that they are college football playoff contenders and SEC West title contenders. And I'm very excited for this one, without a doubt. But LSU is going to get the job done. Number 12, Oregon. Number 25, Washington State. That game where College Game Day is going this year for the first time ever, going to Pullman to see the Cougars play the Ducks. And this is going to be a super exciting one because how is Oregon going to respond after that emotional win over Washington? Or, because you hear stories all the time where you maybe overlook a team. Like Washington State's a good team. They're one of my bigger surprise teams. But Oregon beating the 7th-ranked Huskies. We're high on ourselves. We're one of the better teams in the Pac-12. And then, boom, you get popped in the mouth against a Washington State team that they probably should beat. I'm inclined to pick Oregon in this one, despite my love for home field advantage. Despite all of that, I'm picking Oregon. I just gotta go. I gotta go with the Ducks. Like I said earlier, who has Washington State played? Who have they played? They're 5-1. They're ranked 25th. They're ranked 25th in my opinion. So College Game Day could go there because College Game Day will never. Unless they go to New York that one time, or they go to an FCS school, will never go to a game between 2 unranked opponents or a ranked team and an unranked team. Rarely would they do that. Washington State's lone loss came to USC, who's not that great, and their best win came by 4 points against Utah, who has shown improvement with huge wins against Stanford and Arizona the past 2 weeks, but it's not your powerhouse. They weren't even ranked at the time, to my knowledge. So I think this is the biggest test for Washington State. They'll certainly be hyped for it. I can see this game being somewhat like the game against USC last year, where Washington State shocked the world and beat the Trojans. But I think Oregon gets the win here and continues to show that, hey, Washington's out, Stanford's out, but we're going to slide in, and we are the best team in the Pac-12 and could represent the Pac-12 in the playoff if we keep things going. And then our final game that I want to discuss briefly, USC at Utah. Two unranked teams. So why is this one a big deal? Well, it's because this game can honestly decide who wins the Pac-12 South. And if you look at the standings, that's a weak division compared to the other division with Washington and Oregon, Stanford, who has struggled. This game being played at Utah though, and your contenders in this division are USC, Utah, and Colorado. And Utah has back-to-back wins, blowout wins, I should say, over Stanford and Arizona. And I know Arizona has struggled. They're not like we thought they were last year with Khalil Tate, who just got benched today. But Utah is playing extremely well and kind of peaking at the right time towards the end of the season, kind of going on a little bit of a roll. USC, their only two losses are to Texas and Stanford, but to me still don't look impressive. USC is not the USC of old, and they haven't been the USC of old in a very long time. I know the past 2 years with Sam Darnold, where they won the Rose Bowl, made the Cotton Bowl, those were very impressive years, without a doubt. But USC is prone to doing stuff like this. I think Utah gets the win here, and with this win, Utah might be able to take control of the Pac-12 South, and then it's going to be up to them to kind of determine where they go from there. Will they make the Pac-12 championship game? Can they win it? But I think Utah gets the win here, home field advantage, and the way they're playing much better than USC right now. So I'm going to give the edge to the Utes in this one. Major Pac-12 South implications here, and then we're just going to see what happens in the North, who they might play. Utah has yet to play Colorado, though. That will be another game that we'll address later on in the following weeks that will have major implications as well if these two teams continue to roll. So as long as Colorado doesn't keep choking, as long as Utah keeps rolling. Take a look at some comments here, what we've got going on here from you guys. And like I said, we listed a couple things before the break that we're going to address here in a second. Let's see, is Texas and Florida back? We'll definitely address that. Do I think Georgia will win a championship in the next 3 years? We'll touch on that. If Michigan beats Michigan State on Saturday, it will be their first win over a top 25 team on the road since 2006. So thank you. In NCIS Fanatic 21, that was something that we did not know. So very interesting fact there. Shows how much difficultness and how much Michigan has struggled on the road over the past decade, more than a decade. If there's one other team that could beat Alabama, it's LSU. As of right now, I'd say yes, because Auburn's not going to do it. Regular season, it's LSU. Championship-wise, it's going to be Georgia in the SEC championship, and then whoever they might face in the playoff. South Carolina has been disappointing, 100%. Tua Tagovailoa and Artur Sitkowski seems to be polar opposite. Tua has yet to throw an interception. Sitkowski has thrown 15 interceptions. That is very, very bad. For those of you that don't know, Artur Sitkowski is the quarterback for Rutgers right now, and Rutgers, unfortunately, continuing to struggle mightily with Chris Ash. Let's see, what is my take about the Purdue-Ohio State game? Considering that the Buckeyes haven't been running the ball lately, and they've been having a hard time at Purdue. Touch on that. Let's see what else. My opinion is the game's not going to be close. In other words, I think Ohio State dominates Purdue from start to finish. Texas and Florida are back, but Florida should be in the top 10. So let's talk about that for a second before we go to break here in about 10 minutes or so. Are Texas and Florida back? Maybe leave some comments on that. I'd love to know y'all's take on that. And it's actually something I discussed last week on our TV show here at Arkansas State that we've been sending out a couple times. I believe that Florida might be in a better position than Texas as of right now. You look at a Texas team that right now is on a roll, defeating Oklahoma, one of the bigger wins of the entire season. They're ranked in the top 10, number 7 in the nation, looking like college football playoff contenders potentially, but they've got trap games, major trap games. Biggest game left, home against West Virginia in a very dominant offense, led by Will Grier, although they didn't show it against Iowa State this past weekend, only having 100 yards to the air for Grier, who's supposed to be a Heisman contender. They still have trap games, though, against Texas Tech on the road, so that's going to be a tough one. Oklahoma State on the road as well. That might be a trap game as well. So Texas is in a position where I think they have more opportunities to screw up than Florida does. Florida, Took care of business against Vanderbilt. They almost choked against Vanderbilt, and that would have just been the end of it all. What would you have been doing, Dan Mullen? Fresh off a 8-point victory over a very good LSU team, and you go on the road and lose to Vanderbilt. That would have been extremely embarrassing. Although Vanderbilt is a solid team, Derek Mason's got them going in the right direction. Florida, though, their biggest test left is Georgia. They've already faced Kentucky, and it's coming down to Georgia. That game, I think, next week on the 27th, October 27th. And that game could determine the SEC East, without a doubt. Or really throw things into a major tie-breaking scenario where you've got Kentucky who beat Florida, Florida who beat Georgia, and Georgia who maybe beats Kentucky. Man, imagine how that would work out. Or, Kentucky already having a loss to A&M. But nonetheless, you get what I'm saying, how wild that would be if all that happens. But I think Florida's in a much better position. Their schedule, who they've got left to play, is not as difficult as it is for Texas. Therefore, I think Florida is in a better position to maybe run the table and finish in the top 10, finish in the top 12, go to a New Year's Six bowl game, maybe more so than Texas. Texas is playing extremely well. If they surprise me, beat Oklahoma State, beat Texas Tech, beat West Virginia, then they maybe have a rematch against Oklahoma in the Big 12 championship game. Who knows what could happen? The possibilities are endless for two very solid head coaches in Dan Mullen and Tom Herman. But I have to look at it's frustrating when people use the term back. Is Texas back? Is Florida back? A team to me is never back until they show consistency for a couple years. You can have one really good year. 2 years ago, were we saying Colorado's back? Were we saying Colorado's back to being what they maybe used to be in the 80s, 90s, something like that? No, they had a really good year. They made the Pac-12 championship, lost that, and then got annihilated by Mason Rudolph and Oklahoma State and the Alamo Bowl. Colorado wasn't back, and the next year they fell off and didn't even make a bowl game. So can we make the case for Texas being back or Florida being back? Yeah, I don't know. They're both having great seasons right now, much better seasons than I think people were expecting, much better seasons than they've had in the past couple of years. But maybe in about 3 or 4 years we can sit down and talk again and say, okay, are Florida and Texas back? Are they really showing consistency and showing that they're back and maintaining being a dominant force in their conference? So that's kind of my take on that. But as of right now, they're both playing extremely well, and I can't wait to see how the rest of the season turns out for both of those squads. Let's see what else we've got here. Rutgers is so sad they went from winning their first ever American football game in 1869 to being a league-wide laughingstock. Very true, unfortunately. As for Texas and Florida being back yet, no, I do not agree. But I do agree with you about Florida being closer than Texas. But next year, watch out for Texas. Who knows? Tom Herman's got this team on the right track, 100%. He's got them going in the right direction. We saw that last year with that win over Missouri in the bowl game, getting them back to a bowl game, something Charlie Strong even struggled with. He's doing it this year. People were always freaking out with a season opening loss to Maryland. Things weren't looking good for Texas then, but I think things are going in the right direction for both squads. I'm just excited to see how they go in the next couple of years because, like I said, teams can't be back until they show consistency. You can have one good year and win a national championship for the heck of it, but are you going to keep that up down the stretch? Who knows? A couple of comments that we had over here. Someone was talking about Ohio State, Purdue. We'll touch on that for a second. I think Ohio State takes care of business, without a doubt. And I hate to be so blunt about that and so straightforward and just quick to the point, but Ohio State's playing some really good football. I know they struggled this past week against Minnesota. I know, what was it, a 6-point lead for them going into the fourth quarter? They took care of business down the stretch. But I don't see a team right now that can beat Ohio State in the Big Ten except for maybe Michigan. Maybe Michigan in the season finale. I'm not too worried about Ohio State's trip to Michigan State unless Michigan State were for some reason to beat Michigan this weekend. And they might. I think I was a little inclined to believe that they could. If Mark Antonio finally turns his team around, maybe they do beat Michigan. Maybe they kind of go on a roll like we've seen in the past. Maybe they can beat Ohio State. But I think Michigan's probably the biggest threat to Ohio State right now in the Big Ten. I don't think Purdue is. Purdue struggled early on in the year where they 0-3 to start off the year. Got a huge win against Boston College. Things are clicking for them now, absolutely. I think they'll get back to a bowl game. But I don't think Ohio State is going to struggle much with Purdue, despite it maybe being on the road. So not a big deal there. Excited to see how all that turns out, though. Comment 245, as a Rutgers fan, I'm heartbroken. We made a bad hire. We just need to get back up and try again. That's something we can talk about here a little bit, too. How about these new coaches and bad hires? You look around and, some of the new coaches that we've got out there right now, you've got Arkansas and Chad Morris 1-6. Scott Frost in Nebraska 0-6. You got Willie Taggart in Florida State. I don't know the record off the top of my head. Were they 3-3, 3-4, 4-2? No, not 4-2. Somewhere around there. Playing pitiful though, barely getting annihilated by Virginia Tech, barely beating Samford, getting blown out by Syracuse. Shouldn't have won against Louisville, but they did. If Bobby Petrino had known what the heck he was doing, maybe Louisville would have escaped with a win there. Bobby Petrino and Louisville struggling mightily. So maybe those past couple of years with Lamar Jackson was just a fluke. Who knows? But you look at that. You look at some of the squads that are definitely struggling with their new head coaches, and you can look at some squads that are doing well with their new head coaches, like I think Dan Mullen in Florida, obviously, doing extremely well. I think Joe Moorhead's doing a decent job over there with Mississippi State. I think Mario Cristobal over at Oregon is doing a phenomenal job. And that's a guy that gets a very, very bad rap. You guys are so quick, or some people, not everybody, but we're very quick to just judge and kind of bash Mario Cristobal after Willie Taggart left to take the Florida State job. He didn't win the bowl game over Boise State and things where everybody was freaking out like it was the end of the world and Oregon was just going to fall off again. And look where they're at now, number 12 in the nation with a win over Washington, and should have been a win over Stanford. And imagine where Oregon would be right now had they beaten Stanford. I know Stanford's not looking great now. That win wouldn't be looking as solid on the resume now, but I think Oregon could be 6th, 7th in the nation and how they beat Stanford. So Mario Cristobal doing a phenomenal job with the Ducks. He's got a lot of talent this year with solid quarterback in Justin Herbert, who's going to leave for the NFL. So maybe next year you can criticize him depending on how he does. I don't know how he'll do next year. That's something to keep in mind. The difficultness of losing so many solid players like that. But the fact that I think for any team it's important, especially when you lose your coach early, to try to maintain stability. And Oregon did that by keeping Mario Cristobal there as head coach. So that's just my 2 cents on that. But yeah, these new coaches, they're struggling some. Jeremy Pruitt, 3-3 with Tennessee, is going to continue to struggle, I think, down the stretch. A big win over Auburn, game I didn't think they'd win, but you've got Alabama still. I'm trying to think. They got Kentucky, a team that I think I picked Kentucky to beat Tennessee, got criticized for that, and now look at Kentucky now. More than likely will beat Tennessee. Got Missouri, very pass-happy offense, and Drew Lock. So who knows what's going to happen there. But, coaching is a very, very difficult job. We know that, and it's very easy for fans to criticize calls and criticize the way coaches run their programs, but we're not in their shoes. I'm guilty of that myself. But these guys have got a lot of stuff going on right now, and so we've got to, as fans, got to just kind of think about the situation we're in, think about the players these guys have inherited, and give these guys time. I think you have to give coaches 3 to 4 years max, or minimum maybe, to bring in their players and really show what they've got. Because sometimes you look, I'm just using Chad Morris in Arkansas as an example. Look at the offense that Chad Morris ran at Clemson. Look at the offense he ran at SMU. And look at the players he inherited at Arkansas. Crap. He inherited nobody. They're horrible. They're not part of. They don't fit his scheme. So you take some time, you recruit your players, bring in your style, and then maybe in a couple of years you start making improvements. And that's the case for any coach, regardless. Every coach is going to have a different scheme, and they're going to have to deal with the previous coach's players and their recruits. And so you give them 2-3 years to finally bring those guys in, then maybe you can go, go from there. So it's going to be really interesting to find out. So we're going to take a short break real quick at 3:56. We'll be back here in a couple minutes, play a couple tunes, and then we'll probably jump into either some more comments that you guys are providing for us, and we might jump into a little bit of NBA and NFL. So stay tuned, and we will be right back. All right, guys, what else we got? Will FSU even make a bowl? Will Florida State make a bowl? I don't know. It's a good question. Very difficult schedule coming up. Florida to close out the year. Self-and-play Clemson. It's going to be tough for Willie Taggart to get him there, and I would hate to see that streak end for the Seminoles. That'd be very disappointing. Who's winning the ACC Coastal? That's a great question. Varson 188 answered that. It's up in the air, 100%. Don't think Florida State will play in a bowl game because their schedule is so tough. I agree. That's what I just said. I mean, it's getting tough. It's very possible. Speaking of scheme, I'm starting to wonder why Gus Malzahn recruited Jarrett Stidham instead of a guy who can run his offense. Stidham isn't bad. He just doesn't fit in with Austin. I'm glad Lance Daw. Thank you for saying that. I've never been high on Jarrett Stidham. And that's never been the guy that I thought was the right man for the job for Auburn. You're right. Very good quarterback. Did good things at Baylor. Imagine where Baylor would be right now had he stuck around. But you're right. He doesn't fit in with Auburn. I think Malzahn wants that dual threat quarterback, and Stidham is, but he's not like fast. He's no Lamar Jackson in his prime back in college. So I'm with you on that. I agree with that. He just doesn't fit in with Auburn very well. And I've been critical of Auburn. I got criticized last year because they did a lot better than I expected. Not really, like by a game or two. This year I almost picked them to go 8-4 again. That Mississippi State game was a toss-up for me. But Auburn, to me, in the past 2 years, has been one of the more overrated teams in college football. 100%. That's just my 2 cents on that. Most overrated or overhyped team in the top 10. That's a good one, Varson 188. We'll touch that when we come back from break. Why don't we'll touch on that, then maybe we'll transition a little bit into some NFL, MLB. So bring your questions for that too. This isn't, our main goal of the Gridiron Experts always college football. 100%, always will be. But we'll with this being a radio show, and unfortunately 2-hour radio show, a heck of a long time, we got to kind of spread our wings a little bit and touch on some other topics. So you can bring some questions on NBA, MLB, and NFL. We'll touch on all of that a little bit. So yeah, that's a good talking point there. I appreciate you guys as always. Shout outs to everybody. I'll shout you guys out again on the radio here in a little bit. Appreciate you guys that are watching. Anything new you guys want to continue to see, let me know. Whether it's on normal YouTube videos or here on live streams. If you guys want more live streams, if you enjoy doing this and discussion, let me know. We'll keep that going too. So y'all just leave your comments below. Comment on the YouTube videos. Always appreciated. Continuing to make us better and trying to get to 2,000 subscribers at the end of the year. It's certainly slowed down, unfortunately. A lot slower than I was banking on. So we'll go from there. Let's see. Channel isn't on the radio, so Comic Dude 45. They don't. It's an internet radio. So what you got to do is if you download the Radio FX app and search for Red Wolf Radio, it should pop up there, and you can listen to it there. Their website, usually where we stream, is down right now. That's why we had people in here earlier in the shot, which I was a little upset about. But that's why they were in here working on a bunch of different things like that, technical problems that we've been having. So. That's where it's at, Radio FX app. Download that. Should be free, Red Wolf Radio, and you can listen to the radio broadcast there. Varson will definitely talk about that. Overrated or overhyped teams in the top 10 as of right now. So we'll definitely do that. Do I see the Texans winning the AFC South? NFL question. We'll jump onto that here in a little bit. So definitely touch on that. So awesome. All right, we're going to get things going here a little bit. We got just right at an hour left on the stream. Probably end it with you guys a little bit early and go from there. And as always, make sure you keep in mind that we're going to be doing our Week 8 predictions either tonight or tomorrow, trying to get those out as early as possible every week. Sometimes you get a little preoccupied. Schedules have been booked like crazy this week. All right. All right, welcome back to the Gridiron Expert. My name is Alex Galbraith. We are here at Red Wolf Radio talking all things sports, college football, NFL, MLB, and NBA. And for the past hour or so, we have been in a great discussion about college football. You can go check us out on YouTube at The Gridiron Expert. We have nearly 1,800 subscribers right now. We would always appreciate extra subscribers to get us to our goal of 2,000 by the end of the year. Any likes and comments are always greatly appreciated as well. Check us out on Twitter at Gridiron Expert for behind-the-scenes news, updates, and analysis. We like to bring you guys predictions and our takes on all the games over the course of the weekend. So make sure you go check us out there. And if you want to listen to the radio broadcast, it's Radio FX app. Our website is down right now, but the Radio FX app, search for Red Wolf Radio, and we'll be talking football or anything like that every time we're on here, every Tuesday at 3 o'clock. So we're going to touch a little bit on that. And we're going to wrap up our discussion a little bit on college football right now. And we had a great question by our friend Varson188. We're live streaming this on YouTube right now. We have some great discussions going on, and he wanted to know who is, in my opinion, the most overrated or overhyped team in the top 10 right now. And to reiterate, our top 10 currently stands as Alabama, Ohio State, Clemson, Notre Dame, that's your top 4, LSU, Michigan, Texas, Georgia, Oklahoma, and Central Florida. That's your top 10 right now. So which of those top 10 schools is the most overhyped, overrated, what have you? And my initial look at that, I think the initial look for many people would be immediately just write off Central Florida. Oh, Central Florida because they haven't played anybody. And if you were watching since the beginning, we talked on that about could you consider Central Florida to be college football playoff contenders. If they run the table and go undefeated again, they've got 2 ranked teams on their schedule as of right now in Cincinnati and South Florida. So could you consider them, if they beat both of those schools, they've got to win over Pittsburgh, and then they win their American Athletic Conference championship game. I don't know. Could they make a run for the playoff? That's a great question. I think that would be the initial remarks. Would be like, oh, write them off. For me, I think people aren't going to like it. I've got to say Michigan. I think people aren't going to like that answer. But I'm looking at Michigan's schedule once again, and their win over Wisconsin last week was impressive, without a doubt. Blew them out at the Big House. Their biggest game of the year so far, besides that one, was Notre Dame, which they lost. And Notre Dame, a very good team. That loss would look a lot worse, obviously, if Notre Dame wasn't playing well. But they are. Notre Dame's number 4 in the nation, and they are playing like the number 4 team in the nation. And I don't know if they're going to lose again. But Michigan's number 6, and I don't have reason to believe that they deserve to be there right now. I know that Notre Dame loss wasn't bad. They beat Nebraska. They beat Wisconsin, a solid win there. And the fact they beat Wisconsin so bad, that I get that. They got Michigan State coming up. They still got a date against, was it Penn State? They still have that. They still got Ohio State. So they got 3 big games coming up that will really determine if Michigan's legit or not. So to answer Varson's question, I think they're the most overrated team right now in the top 10. Maybe, maybe not. But by looking at their schedule and who they've played, that's kind of like what I firmly believe right now. But like I said, if they surprise me, if they go on the road and take care of business against the Michigan State team that beat Penn State on the road last week, and they beat Penn State, who's still a bad team or still a good team despite 2 losses, then maybe my move will change. And man, how wild would it be for Michigan to be into the college football playoff? That would be pretty interesting. They almost did it 2 years ago. Set up that number 2 versus number 3 showdown against Ohio State in the season finale. That was back in 2016. A couple of comments here. We've got guys, sharing their opinions on who they think are the most overrated team in the top 10. We've got Auburn or Miami. Well, that's not top 10 for either, but we got Clemson or Texas from Emperor of Rome. Texas tends to get overrated a little bit. Clemson, I'm not going to go there yet. That win over A&M was impressive. I'll give them that. If they take care of business convincingly this weekend against North Carolina State, I'm still going to be fair. We're still high on Clemson. I am concerned with their quarterback situation, though. That is something that does concern me. Let's see what else we've got here. Michigan, another guy said Michigan that they believe that they're the most overrated team in the top 10 right now. We're discussing the ACC Coastal a little bit, stuff like that. So, yeah, okay, so that's kind of a little discussion there. I got to say Michigan. Some people might say Texas, make a case for Central Florida, what have you. But I'm going to go with the Wolverines. Let's change gears for a little bit. We're going to stay on football. We're going to switch over to the NFL for a second. We got some good questions here a second ago. We're talking about the Chiefs and the Rams here. Let's see. Do we see the Rams winning the Super Bowl? Or what if is the reign of the Patriots coming to an end? And I love that question. I love when we talk about the reign of the Patriots coming to the end. It's the same thing with Alabama. When will the reign of Alabama come to an end? We're entering week 7 of the NFL season, so I'm going to talk about what the playoff picture would look like right now in both the AFC and the NFC, and then we'll dive into a little analysis on both. So the AFC, the playoff picture would be seeding-wise, 1, Chiefs, 2nd, the Patriots, 3rd would be the Bengals, 4th would be the Titans, 5th would be the Chargers, and 6th would be the Ravens. So your wild card matchups would be Bengals versus Ravens and Titans versus Chargers. And then Patriots and Chiefs, of course, getting the first-round byes. In the NFC, you would have the Rams with the number 1 seed, undefeated, the only undefeated team in the NFL right now. Saints at number 2, Redskins at 3, Bears at 4, Panthers at 5, and Packers at 6. So that would be Redskins versus Packers and Bears versus Panthers in your wild card games. And of course, like I said, Rams and Saints get the first round bye. My Super Bowl prediction as of right now, is going to be the Patriots versus the Rams. That's so generic. I get it. I know. Oh, of course, he's going to say the Patriots because it's the Patriots. And then the Rams because it's only defeat. That might be the safe bet, because I wasn't expecting the Eagles to run the table last year, going all the way to the Super Bowl. If you go back and watch my predictions for the NFL playoffs, I think I had the Patriots versus the Vikings or Patriots versus the Saints. It was somebody like that. But the Rams, to me, are the number one team in the NFL right now, without a doubt. They made so many off-season trades and signing people in free agency. Jared Goff is playing like one of the better quarterbacks in the league right now, one of the young guns, that's for sure. Todd Gurley playing like one of the better running backs in the league. What do you have? 205 yards, 208 yards last week. That was unbelievable what he did on the ground this week. It certainly helped out my fantasy team, I can tell you that. And then their defense, not to be under. We got Aaron Donald on the defensive line, where they got Aqib Talib back there. You got Marcus Peters. This is a Rams team built by Sean McVay, one of the younger coaches in all of NFL, that is playing extremely, extremely well. And they are certainly Super Bowl contenders. So we had questions up there, like, do we think the Rams could win the Super Bowl? I certainly think they could. Out of the NFC, I think they are the team to beat in the NFC, because if you look at their division, it's pretty weak. You got the Seahawks, you've got the 49ers, and the Cardinals. And really, none of those teams scream contenders right now. Seahawks are your best bet to pose a threat to the Rams. They nearly beat the Rams, 2 weeks ago? But they're certainly not, what they used to be. They lost a lot of defensive people. The Legion of Boom is gone. Russell Wilson doesn't have much of an offensive line, so they're struggling. Marshawn Lynch is gone. This is not the Seahawks team that we saw dominate Super Bowl 48, nearly win Super Bowl 49. They're definitely taking a step back. The Rams own the NFC West right now. Let's talk about some surprise teams for a second. We'll jump a little bit. There you go. Varson nailed it. Just read my mind. Most surprising team in the NFL right now. We're going to talk on that. I think the two teams that are the most surprising are the Chiefs and the Chicago Bears. Those are my two teams that have taken me aback more than anybody else. And we'll start with the Chiefs. They were 5-0 going into that Sunday night football game against the Patriots this past Sunday, and one of the most thrilling games of the season so far. That game, 43-40, I believe, in the Patriots' favor. The Chiefs scored. Patriots took a 40-33 lead. The Chiefs scored in the very next play on like a 75-yard touchdown pass to Tyreek Hill. It was just an unbelievable game, but they left Tom Brady too much time. Arguably the best quarterback in the history of the game, and he gave him too much time. Walked down there. Another game-winning drive for Brady to win 43-40. But the Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes, I keep forgetting that Patrick Mahomes is not a rookie, because he didn't play much last year. Alex Smith, if you remember, was still the quarterback for the Chiefs. And if you remember last year, I believe they also started 5-0 before tanking a little bit. Were they 6-6 before running the table again and losing in the wild card round to the Titans, and one of the bigger upsets, I thought, of the NFL postseason. But Andy Reid is building something. And he's been building something in Kansas City for a long time. And I think he's finally got the pieces together for what he wants. Because Patrick Mahomes, man, unbelievable player. He would be my vote for Rookie of the Year if he was a rookie, because he is playing like one of the better quarterbacks in the NFL right now. You got Kareem Hunt on the ground. You got Tyreek Hill. You got one of the better tight ends in Travis Kelce. Only tight end I think would be better would be Rob Gronkowski with the Patriots. So we saw the two best tight ends going at it this past Sunday. Their defense should not be slept on either. So I think the Chiefs certainly are the best contenders, or the team to beat in their division, the AFC West. Not extremely easy though. Raiders are not a contender in that division, but the Chargers are certainly looking like one could compete to win that division, and the Broncos are doing okay. So that's one of my biggest surprise teams. I got two more. Bears, as I mentioned. What Mitchell Trubisky is doing, I had my doubts. Mitchell Trubisky got drafted. What did he get drafted? 2nd overall 3 years ago, to the Bears, and they traded up for him, and I was like, I don't know. The man only started 1 year at North Carolina, and I didn't know what to expect with him running an NFL offense. And he didn't start off well, but neither did Jared Goff. Neither of those two quarterbacks started off well when they first got into the league, and now look what they're doing. The Bears are having a flying offense. They're playing extremely well, and that acquirement of Khalil Mack in one of the oddest trades that I've ever seen, maybe one of the most stupidest trades I've ever seen in the NFL, with the Raiders shipping Khalil Mack to the Bears, has helped Chicago tremendously. They should have won Week 1 against the Packers, where Khalil Mack just went off. But he has been the leader of this Bears team, and they're certainly looking like contenders in their division, in the NFC North. That's a tough division, though. Packers, Vikings, Bears, and Lions, who shouldn't be slept on, are still playing extremely well. Not extremely well, but still playing decently enough under Matt Patricia, the former Patriots defensive coordinator. So that's one of my surprise teams. And the Bengals, of course, I throw them in there. I didn't mention them earlier. The Bengals, a team led by Marvin Lewis that's always prone and known for choking and blowing leads and not being able to win in the postseason. But something just feels different about this Cincinnati Bengals team. Maybe it's not. But I think they are the favorite in their division, in the AFC North. Some people will say, no, that would be the Steelers. But if you listened to me earlier, Steelers aren't even in the playoff picture right now. They're on the outside looking in. They'll work their way back up in there. But the absence of Le'Veon Bell, you can tell, is playing a huge role in the way this Pittsburgh offense is having to work. So I think the Bengals could win that division, and I think they could maybe pull off an upset in the second round of the playoffs if they can finally win in the wild card round, assuming they don't get a first round bye. I don't know. But that's one of my bigger surprise teams. Got a couple comments before we're going to disappointments. Let's see what we've got here. Who do I want winning the NFL MVP? We'll address that in a little bit. Favorite NFL prospect this upcoming draft? And Lance Dahl made another good point. I mentioned that Jared Goff and Mitchell Trubisky did not have very good years in their first year in the league. And he made a good point. Neither did Carson Wentz with the Eagles. He didn't play extremely well. Didn't play bad, but didn't play extremely well. Now look at him. He would have won MVP last year had he not gotten hurt against the Rams. So that's something to keep in mind there. Which NFL team do you think will have the worst record? Well, a little early to say based on just the way things go. NFL is so different from college football because anything can happen on a given Sunday in the NFL. In college, you usually know what's going to happen. Alabama's not going to go lose to Alabama wasn't going to lose to Missouri Saturday night. That wasn't going to happen. But in the NFL, these are all professionals here, so anything can happen in the NFL. So I can't really touch on that as of right now. I will tell you the team that I've been most disappointed with, though, has been the Oakland Raiders. And I'm a fan of John Gruden. Some people like him, some people hate him. I like him. I like the fire that he brings with him. The passion. Kind of reminds me a little bit of James Franklin. The passion, the intensity that he brings with him to his squad. But they're sitting at 1-5 right now. That one win is coming in a very close overtime victory over the Browns, 45-42. So they could almost be 0-6 right now. So I've been very, very disappointed with that. Anytime you get a new coach, like we talked about in college, it's difficult. It's difficult to kind of make the players buy into your system. It takes time, 100%. But I was expecting a little bit more of Gruden. Maybe I don't think he's lost his touch. He's been on coaching for a while, but I just think it takes a little bit of time. He's bringing in his new scheme. He's got a solid quarterback in Derek Carr. Still got Marshawn Lynch. He added some good wide receivers in Jordy Nelson. I believe still got Martavis Bryant. So that's something to keep in mind there. You got the Falcons, also a team that has disappointed me a little bit, sitting at 2-4, have extremely struggled this season from a team that was in the Super Bowl just 2 years ago. They have lost 3 games by 1 possession. Eagles, they lost that game 18-12 in the season opener, a game where they could not find the end zone. They struggled so hard, the Falcons did, to get into the end zone in that game. They had, 4 chances, just like that playoff game they had last year, where they couldn't get in the end zone from inside the red zone. They lost to the Saints 43-37 in overtime. That was a very close game, very unfortunate game for the Falcons. And then just a couple weeks ago, losing to the Bengals with 12 seconds left, 37-36. The Falcons could be much better right now. They win 3 of those games, and they're 5-1, up there, number 2 seed in the NFC right now. But so it goes. So life goes. Falcons, I still think one of the better, by far the best, I think, below 500 team in the NFL right now. And they're in a tough division with an improving Tampa Bay Buccaneers, the Saints, obviously, number 2 seed in the NFC as of right now, then the Carolina Panthers, who unfortunately just lost to the Washington Redskins this past Sunday. So that's one of the tougher divisions there. Going back to our Super Bowl pick, I want to touch a little bit on the Patriots reign ending, whoever was the guy that asked that. If I were to predict that Patriots-Rams game to happen, I would go with the Patriots to win that game, and I'll do you one even better. I think if the Patriots were to win that game, that Brady might retire. He might call it quits after that. There's all this talk that Brady wants to play till he's 45. And I think Brady has that drive in him to break all the records. He wants to break the passing yards record. He wants to break the touchdown record. He's got 5 Super Bowls right now. He's already up on the top of the list with that. But I don't think he'll ever get that because Drew Brees is younger than Tom Brady. I don't think Drew Brees will retire before Tom Brady. And Drew Brees just broke the passing yards record and is right behind him for touchdowns. So if Brady breaks that record, Brees is going to break it shortly after him. So it's just going to be a battle between the two. So I think Brady, what a bittersweet way to go out. You beat the Rams, the team you beat to win your first ever Super Bowl. That's your 6th Super Bowl ring, and maybe he's done. That could be the case. And maybe that would be the end of the Patriots' reign. Belichick, I think, will stick around for a couple more years. I think he would leave. I think Josh McDaniels steps in from OC and takes over as head coach and goes from there. I think the Patriots' reign is going to end sooner rather than later. If you kept up with the NFL news and saw the stuff that the Patriots were going through this offseason, the fact that Brady almost didn't come back and didn't make up his mind to come back to the Patriots until April, the beef that he had with Belichick and Robert Kraft and everything that was going on, the fact that they traded Jimmy Garoppolo to the 49ers upon the request of Brady, it was wild. There's some bad blood inside the organization, and eventually that organization is going to crumble. I think these guys are trying to win 1 or 2 more Super Bowls together, and then it's all going to fall apart from there. So it's going to be very interesting to see how all of that plays out. Check out a couple more comments here before we take another short break, and we'll come back. Let's see what we've got. Which team do you think will have the worst record? Michael Hogg says he believes that it will be the Colts or the Giants. And that's possible. I'd lean more towards the Giants on that part. Giants are just a bit of a train wreck right now. They've got so much talent. They do have so much talent. They've got Odell and Saquon and a decent defense. Eli Manning gets criticized all the time, but he's not a bad quarterback. Nothing compared to his brother, without a doubt. But he still has 2 Super Bowls against the Patriots. But Eli is certainly not one of the better quarterbacks in the league, I would say, but he does get a bad rap, I feel like. And I hate how last year Ben McAdoo ended that streak for him, the consecutive starting streaks. That was just ridiculous because the season was lost by that point. So what was the point of benching him anyways? It just didn't make sense to me. But so it goes. Which guests have guests on your show? Michael Hogg says, and yes, that is certainly our plan. We are. This is our first time that we've been on Red Wolf Radio. This is the first time we've done a live stream. So we're certainly going to bring guests on very, very soon, hopefully by next week even. But right now we were just getting a feel for things, doing our first live stream, going to town on this, kind of figuring things out as we go along. But yes, great idea. Certainly we'll be doing that in the near future. Most disappointing team in college football. We kind of touched on that a little bit. We'll probably address that here in a little bit. Let's see. Patriots are waiting to draft Tua Tagovailoa or Trevor Lawrence. And that was by Prince 6'1". Now that would be super intriguing. The Patriots do need a quarterback for the future. When Brady chooses to retire, Garoppolo was that man. He was extremely good. But, you look at it, he was just, they were wasting some talent with him sitting on the bench. So, how the Patriots could land Tua Tagovailoa or Trevor Lawrence, I don't know. Because the possibility of they're not going to fall all the way down to the Patriots. Patriots have to make some big moves in the draft, trading up to land them. I don't know about that. As happy as I would be to see a solid quarterback that fill the shoes of Brady, I just don't see that as a possibility. But you never know. Never know. Dalton Leatherwood, Arkansas State sweatshirt? That's a question mark. Yeah, this is an Arkansas State sweatshirt, as I addressed earlier for some of you that are just now joining us or haven't been here the whole time. A lot of y'all have asked me where I've gone to college or decided to go to college. It is Arkansas State. Yes, it's not one of the more traditional Power 5 schools or maybe one of the top dogs by any means, but no, we're liking it up here. I've got great programs for broadcast and radio and what we're trying to accomplish further down the road. So this is where we decided to be. So rarely do I represent any team on my show in terms of what I'm wearing or things in the background, but made a little bit of an exception today. We're on Red Wolf Radio on, what are we on now? On Radio FX, the app. So go search that, Red Wolf Radio there, and you can listen to the live stream there. I'm glad y'all are watching us here on YouTube. Let's see what else we've got. How do I feel about Iowa football? I'm going to talk on that a little bit. Iowa's playing well right now. Man, if they had gotten the win against Wisconsin, they'd be looking really good right now. But they're still a very, very solid team, without a doubt. Do I think Arkansas State covers this week? Dalton, I don't even know the spread right now, to be honest with you. I haven't looked at my spread picks this week. I'm going to be sending those out probably Thursday, so make sure you check Twitter for that. At Gridiron Expert, we'll definitely be putting our spread picks out there. We're way over 50%, which has certainly been our goal, doing well against the spread, for especially being the first year we've done this. Who do I think will get the Super Bowl MVP? Well, Mina, that really just depends on who's going to be in the Super Bowl. If it was Patriots and Rams, like I'm thinking it might be, and the Patriots win, without a doubt it's going to go to Tom Brady, I think. I mean, rarely do you see a player that's not a quarterback win MVP. I know Deion Branch won it when the Patriots beat the Eagles the first time, or when they faced off the first time. I know that I think it was Santonio Holmes won it when the Steelers beat the Cardinals. But it's not very often that you see non-quarterbacks win MVP. But it just depends on who's playing. Let's see. Have fun in college. Best years of your life, bro. Appreciate that, Prince. Always appreciate the support and the comments from you guys. Yeah, I'm having a blast up here. Do I think Jarrett Stidham is NFL ready? And does Kentucky or Florida have a chance to beat out Georgia for the East? Great talking points. We're going to take a short break, and we're going to come right back to that. So definitely great talking points there. So when we get back from the break, we'll address those two questions, any comments we have left, and we'll touch a little bit on NBA basketball since that kicks off tonight at 6:30. So stay tuned. We'll be right back here on the Gridiron Expert. All right, let's see what we got going, guys. Appreciate the comments. This is going great because we had a lot of content planned, but having some comments in the live stream and getting some more info and more discussion points going is awesome. So we do appreciate that. Great talking points with Stidham and Kentucky or Florida. We'll touch on that. So thank you, Varson 188, and thank you, Lance Dahl, for that. And Dalton, yeah, 100%. Definitely no shame in Arkansas State, man. I'm loving it up here. Great school, great people. Great faculty. I'm seizing every opportunity I've got, and you're right. So what did you say a few years ago? Rocky Hayes, 2011, 2015. That's awesome. So yeah, we're having a blast. No shame in that at all. Yeah, some people don't like saying they go to a Sun Belt school. No issue in that. They call it the Fun Belt for a reason, right? So we're doing extremely well here. Respond to some of these comments for a second. Another great question by Mina. Which matchup do I want to see in the NBA Finals in 2019? That's another talking point. So we'll address those two college football questions when we get back. Change gears to the NBA. We've only got about 35 minutes left in the show, so time's going by quick. Time's going by fast. We'll probably do that. Have one more break, come back, close things off, and then go from there. So, but yeah. So we'll go from there. We're making a lot of progress. I'll tell you what, guys, I'm enjoying this live stream stuff. You know, I've good friends with Mark Rogers and College Football Dojo. Some guys have done some live streams before. Mark does his live streams all the time, and it's always a blast being on there or just watching those. And it just proves some great discussion points, really getting everybody involved. So I can respond to you guys in the comments, but it's a lot better doing it this way and actually just addressing y'all's questions live as we're going along. So this is a lot of fun. So any suggestions or anything you guys want there, continue to throw those out. It's always a blast. All right. See, we'll come back here in about 2 minutes or so and go from there. I think it will be Warriors-Celtics in the finals. That's AI24 saying that. And I like that. I think without a doubt the Warriors have got to be the team coming out of the West. And we'll probably touch a little bit on that next week. We've got a couple guys that have a very vast knowledge of NBA basketball. Probably bring them on here at some point and discuss that with you guys. And any other topics you guys want to see. We're getting some good discussion points here, but continue to say that, and we'll go from there, 100%. So appreciate that, Clayton. Looks good. We're trying. We're getting there, making progress. So Here we go. Let's go back here. And welcome back to the Gridiron Expert. My name is Alex Galbraith, and we have been talking all things sports for about the past hour and a half. You are listening to Red Wolf Radio here at Arkansas State University. And like I said, I'm the Gridiron Expert. Go check us out on YouTube at The Gridiron Expert for some great college football news, predictions, and analysis. We're actually live streaming our broadcast right now. So we have had some great discussion points and some great questions that have popped up over the course of the day. Go check us out on Twitter at Gridiron Expert for some extra analysis and content over there as well. So like I said, we're on Red Wolf Radio. You can listen to us on the Radio FX app and type in Red Wolf Radio and you can go to town. So we've got some stuff, some music playing when we're on our breaks. But if you're watching the live stream, I'm just talking to you guys. So always appreciate the support and the feedback. And we're going to continue talking a little bit. We're switching gears back to college football, as I promised, because we had two very solid questions right before the break. I said we were going to address those. And the first one was whether or not I thought Jarrett Stidham, the quarterback at Auburn, was NFL ready. And my initial reaction is absolutely not. I do not think he would make it on an NFL roster. I think he'll get drafted, if that's what you're asking, Barson. I think he'll get drafted, but I don't think he's going to play. He has, this year especially, he has not played him close to the caliber of, any of the players, any of the quarterbacks that got drafted the year before. Baker Mayfield, you got Josh Allen, you got Sam Darnold. He's not, I don't think he's one of the better quarterbacks in the nation right now. And that's no hate on Stidham. That's no hate on Auburn. That's just the way I see things right now. I think he'll get drafted late round, late third round, fourth round, maybe somewhere around there, because he's definitely got the arm and I think the football IQ to do well. But I don't think he will ever be a potential starter for an NFL team. I do not think he's NFL ready. Does Kentucky or Florida? This was asked by Lance Dahl. Does Kentucky or Florida have a chance to beat out Georgia for the East? So if you're looking at the standings right now, you got Georgia, who's up there. Were they 6-1, 5-1, somewhere like that? Number 8 in the nation, I think they are now. Check our rankings here. Yeah, number 8 in the country, and they have one loss and one conference loss. That game would be against LSU this past weekend. They lost by 20 points. You look at Florida, who's been playing extremely well. Only one loss to Kentucky, so another conference loss, but has been playing extremely well. Beat LSU, who is one of the better threats in the SEC West and on the national stage. So you get number 5 in the country right now. So Georgia and Florida both have one conference loss and one loss total. And then you've got Kentucky, who also has just one loss. That game coming to Texas A&M. So all against different teams, except for Florida, I guess, losing to Kentucky. So Kentucky, if the season were in right now, they'd have the tiebreaker. They would both be tied record-wise in conference play. Kentucky owns the head-to-head tiebreaker over the Gators. Georgia has yet to play Florida, and Georgia has yet to play Kentucky. Both of those coming, I think, in actually consecutive weeks. I think Florida is the 27th for Georgia, and I think it's after that. If Georgia continues to play, if they don't bounce back from this LSU loss, then absolutely they can lose control of the SEC East, and maybe Florida takes advantage. I think Florida has a better chance than Kentucky. That's just my opinion. I don't think Kentucky would have beat LSU. And I know, and home field advantage played a role in that, having that game in the swamp. But even if that game had been played at Kroger Field at Kentucky, I don't think the Wildcats would have beaten the Tigers. Don't think it would have happened. So I think, and Kentucky beat Florida so early on in the season. That was week 2. So you're still trying to find your groove, still trying to figure things out, work on your schemes, get your players developed. And Florida, and they both just kind of took off from there. But I think that Florida has a better chance of winning the East than Kentucky does. But I would still think my favorite would be Georgia. I think Kirby Smart is not the type of coach that's going to let a 20-point loss slide when you're the favorite, when you're a touchdown favorite. He's not going to let that slide. It's not going to happen. So I think he's going to take care of business. I forget who Georgia plays this week. I don't know the exact score. Or maybe they have a bye week. I'm not positive. They don't have it in front of me. But nonetheless, I feel like Kirby Smart's not going to let it slide. I mean, if you heard me earlier say, last year, beginning of November, Georgia got blown out by Auburn. What was it, 40-17? Blown out and yet bounced back, ran the rest of the table all the way, and beat Auburn, annihilated Auburn 28-7 in the SEC championship game, beat Oklahoma, made the national championship game, a game they should have won had Tua Tagovailoa not come into our world. So I think Kirby Smart's going to have this team ready to go. Not going to let another performance like that happen again. But that game against Florida is getting more and more interesting by the day. If both those teams are still in the top 10 or top 12, that's huge, not just for SEC East, but for college football playoff. I mean, the loser of that's out. Loser of that is out of the college football playoff running. The winner of that keeps their hopes alive, but more likely will have to face off against Alabama in the SEC championship game. So that game is getting huge. I'm excited to watch it, but I think Florida has a better chance of knocking off Georgia than Kentucky. But I would still stick with my original pick that Georgia's still going to end up winning the East. That's just my take on it. See what else we've got here. In the future, will you make an NFL channel or an NBA channel? Possibly. Varson's 188. That's possible. Where we got our time is very occupied with college football, but maybe in the off season we might touch a little bit on that stuff. Is Iowa a playoff contender if they win out and beat Ohio State in the Big Ten championship game? And if you watched my last video on the recap, I believe it was, maybe it was 2 weeks ago, I talked about Iowa as a team trending up because they only have one loss, and that one loss is to Wisconsin. And their toughest game left on that schedule, I think, is on the road against Penn State, which apparently isn't looking that tough to play at anymore. Penn State losing back-to-back home games to Ohio State, which is understandable. It's Ohio State. But then Michigan State, a game they shouldn't have lost. A Michigan State team that is not, in my opinion, that talented to go into Happy Valley and win there. So, yeah, if Iowa wins out, beats Penn State, and then it sets up a date with Ohio State. You got to keep in mind, though, I don't think Iowa's ranked right now. I don't know if they are. They're in with the low 20s. So it's going to be very, very interesting to see what happens. But if they went out and set up a one-loss Iowa team going up against an undefeated or one-loss Ohio State team in the Big Ten championship game and win that, 100% contenders. This would be the Iowa team, what we saw 3 years ago, where they were one play away from going to the college football playoff, losing to Michigan State in the Big Ten championship game. So, yes, I agree. Yes, Brody, 100%. I think Iowa's our playoff contenders. That one loss to Wisconsin isn't bad. It's not a great loss considering the way Wisconsin's been playing, but it's not bad. And it was close, too. Let's see. I'm not being a hater, but Arkansas against Ole Miss. Arkansas should have won that game. All right. They should have watching that game. Out of all the heirs, Heisman contenders, which one is most NFL ready? Just trying to get some talking points. Which team in the top 4 do I think is most likely to get upset? And all right, so those are the two big ones. We'll start there with Varsity 188. Which team in the top 4 do I think is most likely to get upset? Looking at it, with the way the schedules are playing out, Clemson. I don't think anybody's going to beat Alabama. I don't think anybody's going to beat Ohio State right now. Ohio State's taking care of Penn State already. They didn't look good against Minnesota, but I think they'll get to take care of business. They still got a date against Michigan State. They still got a date against Michigan. So those are definitely some tough games they've got looking down the stretch. But I think Ohio State's going to take care of business. I think Dwayne Haskins is playing extremely well. Without him, I don't know where Ohio State would be right now. They're playing extremely well. Clemson, though, look, they almost lost to Syracuse after Kelly Bryant announced that he was going to transfer. Syracuse, a good team, very offensive-minded team. You've got Kelly Bryant transfers, Trevor Lawrence comes in. I know we got hurt in that game, and I think they bounced back and just crushed Wake Forest. But I think Clemson's probably the most likely team out of the top 4, because I don't think Notre Dame's going to lose down the stretch either. Notre Dame didn't look good against Pittsburgh. I was not impressed with their 19-14 win over the Panthers, but they still got the job done, and I don't think Brian Kelly's going to let something like that happen again. Their toughest game left, they got Northwestern thrown in there. I think they've got Florida State, Syracuse, and USC. None of those scream upset alert to me. Even though Northwestern and USC, I think, are both on the road, I think Notre Dame should be able to take care of business. So I think that's going to be Clemson for the team that could lose in the top 4 or get upset. Heisman contenders, I've repeatedly said that it's been the year of the quarterback. Tua Tagovailoa, Will Grier, Dwayne Haskins. You can throw in Kyler Murray, Trace McSorley with Penn State even. And which one's most NFL ready? Honestly, it's probably going to be Tua Tagovailoa. I know that's the cheap answer. I know it's the easy answer. But the way his decision-making and his arm, my goodness, man, he is one of the more accurate passers. I mean, no interceptions yet. This guy's a beast. I don't know if he'll go pro after this season because he's just a sophomore. He might stick around one more year. But his accuracy and the deep ball especially, he's by far, I think, the best quarterback in the nation. Build-wise, though, and talent overall, I might give the edge maybe, or throw in Will Grier. I think even though he had a poor performance against Iowa State, I think his size and his arm definitely benefits him, and is the type of quarterback NFL scouts are going to be looking for. So I think Tagovailoa or Grier are your best bets for NFL readiness. NC State, as a dark horse of the playoff, they will pull off the upset this weekend. That's from Dalton Leatherwood, and I mentioned Clemson being the team that I thought could be most likely to get upset. Not necessarily this week, just at some point, and Clemson happens to play North Carolina State. So you win that, you could make the case for North Carolina State to be vying for a playoff spot, especially if they continue to play extremely well. Do I see Will Grier out of the Heisman talk? Not yet. I said in one of my previous videos that one game does not define. One game shouldn't take away the chance to win a Heisman. People are going to have bad games, or someone might have an injury or something like that. It happens. That's just something to think about. But yeah, I'm not taking him out of the Heisman race yet. But if he has another poor game like that, I mean, mustering only 100 yards, it's pitiful. So we're going to wait and figure that out. But no, I don't think he's out of the Heisman once yet. Players that have one bad game should not be out of. Their stock will drop, and that's fine, but they should not be considered to be out of a race because of one bad performance. If NC State pulls the upset against Clemson, do I think NC State is a playoff contender? Possibly. They're 16th in the country right now. They go on the road to defeat number 3 Clemson. They'll jump from 16th to at least 12th, if not higher. Crack the top 10. They'd have to win out because their strength of schedule at this point has not been impressive. But yeah, I do. And that would surprise the heck out of me if they did. I don't think they will. I don't think they'll beat Clemson. But if they do, you can start talking about the Wolfpack as potentially being a dangerous playoff contender. Can Michigan beat Michigan State and Penn State? We talked about that a little bit, Corbin. Yes, Michigan can beat them both, but I'm leaning a little towards Michigan State right now. We got to start 1 week at a time. That's against Michigan State this week. I'm leaning a little bit towards the Spartans' way. Still up in the air. That'll come out in our Week 8 predictions video later on. All right, great discussion. Most disappointing team in college football varsity. Still saying on the surprising, disappointing team thing. I love it. I could say a lot of teams. If you want to talk about teams that were contenders, we addressed that earlier with Auburn, Wisconsin, Penn State. If you want to talk about just any team, Comic Dude 45 made a good point that Rutgers has been very disappointing. Kansas has shown improvement. Usually Kansas is a cop-out answer. But they've improved a little bit. Got two or three wins down, being a little more competitive. So yeah, I mean, I don't know. There have been a lot of disappointing teams. Arkansas has been disappointing. Nebraska has been disappointing. A lot of these schools with new head coaches, they've been somewhat disappointing. So that's something to keep in mind there. So we're going to change gears for 1 second, probably just a few minutes. We'll take a break and then come right back and wrap things up. Talk about the NBA for 1 second. Just because the NBA season starts tonight, we got 2 great games, 76ers and Celtics, the 2 teams that met in the Eastern Conference semifinals, and then Thunder and Warriors, which obviously bad blood there already. As we all know, Kevin Durant going from the Thunder and to the Warriors, one of the more cheaper moves, I think, in NBA history. At least that's what some people will say. So, someone may ask a question earlier who I thought might make the run to the NBA Finals in 2019. It's not going to be the Lakers, I can tell you that. Despite what many people might want me to say or might think, look, LeBron's going to have a huge effect. I think LeBron will get the Lakers back to the playoffs, 100%. But in my opinion, LeBron is surrounded by a bunch of, B-level all-stars, B-level athletes. Think about his supporting cast compared to what he used to have at Cleveland and even in Miami. This year he's got Lonzo Ball, who I don't think is that great. You got JaVale McGee in there. Kuzma's very good. But he doesn't have, you got Rondo, got some veterans in there, Rondo and Lance Stevenson. But this isn't anything compared to having Kevin Love and Shumpert and J.R. Smith, despite his poor basketball IQ, or Kyrie Irving for a little bit. So LeBron will get the Lakers to the playoffs, but they will not make the finals. I think in the West, without a doubt, it's got to be the Warriors. Warriors just continue to reload year after year after year. You've got Steph Curry, of course, Klay Thompson, Durant. There's your big 3. You got Draymond Green in there. Now they've got DeMarcus Cousins in there. I mean, they just continue to reload. They're practically unstoppable. The West, much more deep, much more difficult than the West. The West is much more difficult than the East. Think about these teams in the West: Rockets, Warriors, Jazz, Thunder, Trailblazers, Spurs, teams that are perennially contenders in the playoffs. East is certainly up for grabs now that LeBron's out. I think the heavy favorite are the Celtics. as someone said earlier. I think it was AI24. I think they're the favorite. You got was it Jason Tatum in there playing extremely well. You got Gordon Hayward in there. You've got I'm blanking on some names right now. I'll think of it in a little bit. But I think the Celtics are the favorites. But right behind them, you can make a case for the 76ers, who gave the Celtics a fight and made the playoffs, trusting the process. Ben Simmons, Joel Embiid, guys like that, and then the Raptors adding Danny Green and Kawhi Leonard in the offseason, and of course pairing them up with Kyle Lowry. So I think those are probably your top 3 teams in the East: Celtics, 76ers, and Raptors. You can make cases for the Wizards, you can make cases for the Bucks, but I think the Celtics are certainly the favorite. So easy answer would be to say yes, Warriors and Celtics, NBA Finals 2019. Who knows? Season starts tonight, though. 2 solid games, I believe, on TNT, 76ers and Celtics, Thunder and Warriors. I can't wait to watch that Thunder-Warriors game just because of the bad blood between the 2 teams, especially between Westbrook and Durant. Always a fun one there. But it's going to be really interesting to see. And all eyes will be on LeBron when he makes his NBA or when he makes his Lakers debut here in the next few days. I think the Lakers will be around a 4 or 5 seed, says AI24. And I think Kawhi Leonard will resign next year. I do not think he'll resign or retire, but Kawhi Leonard is certainly in an interesting position. Before we go to break, the one thing that makes me mad about every athlete, any athlete, that sits there and complains about where they're going to play or how much money they're getting paid to play, that's one thing that just irritates me more than anything else. Kawhi Leonard, in my opinion, does not have the right to sit there and complain about where he wants to go play. I want to go play in LA, or I don't want to go play in Toronto. Guess what? You're playing NBA basketball for a living, and you're getting paid millions of dollars. Go suck it up and win. You're going to a good team in the Raptors who can compete. And now that the East is, out, LeBron's out of the East, you've got a solid chance to go compete there. You look at Le'Veon Bell with the Steelers sitting there and complaining about how much money he's getting and he doesn't feel wanted or anything like that. These guys are getting paid millions of dollars. Some people will never make this type of money in their entire lifetime. We're complaining because we're not getting a $5 million pay raise or something like that. Look, I love sports more than the next guy. I wouldn't sit here and talk about it for 2 hours if I didn't. But it irritates me more than anything when we hear players like that. They complain about where they're going to go play, when they complain about how much money they're getting, when they complain about their teammates. It's ridiculous. Have a little class, have a little respect, just for other people out there. It's a shame. It's a shame. It doesn't matter where you're playing. I know you want to win, but you're still getting to play a game for a living and making a crap ton of money doing it. So that's just my take. So when AI24 said, do I think he'll resign, I would be very shocked and very upset if he did that, because that would be a very, in my opinion, classless move. I think if he was going to resign, though, he would have done it this year because he wasn't happy about going to the Raptors. So that's just my take on that. Let's see. Yeah, complain about wanting more money. Absolutely. Dalton Leatherwood, the only reason, or the one reason why Le'Veon Bell is trash is because he wants more money. So I can't disagree with that. I think it's a very poor argument and a very poor choice by Le'Veon Bell. That's just my take on that. So, all right, what we're going to do is we are going to take a very short break and come right back and we're going to wrap things up. We're going to have a quick, hold on a second. Had a quick infomercial. So we're going to be right back. Still trying to work the system here and wrap things up on the Gridiron Expert here at Red Wolf Radio. Had a few technical difficulties. Apologize about that for those who are actually listening to the radio. Had a couple commercials, infomercials thrown in there that we weren't banking on, so had to deal with that. Still trying to get the whole hang of this thing, but having a blast. Hope you all have enjoyed it. It's going well. We'll probably come back here about 4:50, wrap things up about the last 10 minutes, and let the next guy come in for their 5 o'clock show. See what other comments we've got. Astros have a chance. Barcelona 188. We didn't really talk much about MLB. Maybe I'll address that when we get back briefly. Brewers are up 2-1 on the Dodgers in terms of that series. Red Sox and Astros series tied 1-1. So, we'll talk briefly about that when we get back. Hurricanes have been so disappointing this year. 100%. Barson 188. That's understatement. Where did they start off the season? Ranked 8th, something like that. Losing to LSU wasn't that big a deal, especially with the way LSU's been playing. Losing to Virginia, not good, especially when you haven't even played. And they took care of business against Florida State, but they haven't faced Boston College yet. And that was a game I thought they were going to lose too. Boston College playing extremely well, so things just aren't looking good. Do I think Georgia will lose to the Gators? I don't know. Not now. Not now. I think they're gonna hang in there and get the win. The Bulldogs, but I think that Florida is definitely going to get a better fight than people were expecting. Florida, look, I had them going 9-3 at the beginning of this season, and people thought I was crazy. But you got to look at the talent that Dan Mullen was returning, and the type of offense that Dan Mullen runs. It's impressive. So, yeah, I think it's going to be a very, very close game. Most interesting conference championship game I've ever seen in college football. That's a great question. Back in 2009 or 2010, one of the two, Texas played Nebraska. That game was wild. Nebraska should have won that game, but Texas was able to get up that last-second field goal. Some very controversial calls there towards the end. The SEC championship game back in 2012, Alabama, Georgia, number 3 and number 2. If Georgia had let that pass just fall onto the ground, I can't remember who he threw it to. I think it was Aaron Murray. Pass out in the flats. And the guy fell down. They didn't have any timeouts. He doesn't catch that ball, just passes to the ground. They have one last play to go to the end zone. Maybe they don't win it, but they have a chance to win it. And if they win that, Georgia's going to the national championship and playing Notre Dame. So it's crazy to think about. It's crazy how one play can change everything. This is an awesome show. Great job. I appreciate that, Dalton. Really do. Hopefully we'll be back here next week and maybe a couple more times over the course of the next few weeks. So I appreciate that. Did I see Mullen and Mason fight? Yes, I did. That was wild. That's good stuff. How do I like ASU? Got a couple of questions on that already, but it's going great. Having a blast. Love being here. Love all the people, faculty, the opportunities that I've been presented with. Things are going great. So hopefully things will just keep it up. All right, it's 4:50. We're going to wrap things up, do a little MLB talk, closing remarks. We'll get out of here. All right, welcome back to the Gridiron Expert here at Red Wolf Radio at Arkansas State University. Check us out on YouTube at The Gridiron Expert for some of the best college football news, predictions, and analysis. Also check us out on Twitter at Gridiron Expert for some behind-the-scenes info and a little extra analysis that you might not get on YouTube or anywhere else for that matter. Like I said, we're here at Red Wolf Radio. You can find us on Radio FX app. Search Red Wolf Radio, and you'll be able to listen to our broadcast. Or you can go check us out on YouTube at The Gridiron Expert. We are live streaming. It has some great discussion, great debates going on right now in the comments section. So you can go check us out on there. We only got about 10 minutes left, so we're going to talk briefly about the MLB playoffs. So we got the National League Championship Series and the American League Championship Series going on right now. And NLCS is pretty wild if you look at it. You got the Brewers that have a 2-1 series lead over the Dodgers. As we all know, these games, best of 7, so you got to get to 4. But the Brewers have never won a World Series. Never. In their 50-plus years of playing baseball, have never won a World Series. So how cool. I mean, it would be pretty cool to see that. That'd be the second team in the past 3 years from the National League Central to win a World Series and snap a streak. The Cubs snapping their 108-year losing streak, and then Brewers getting the win there. But at the same time, to play devil's advocate, I would love to see the Dodgers go back. They went there last year, fell to the Astros. And Clayton Kershaw is such a deserving pitcher that I would love to see him get a ring. He's one of the better pitchers in the game. I know he didn't play extremely well against the Brewers a couple nights ago, but he deserves a ring. And so how cool would it be to see him back in the World Series on that national stage there? And the ALCS, Red Sox, Astros, heck of a series. tied at 1-1. Arguably the two best teams in Major League Baseball right now. The Red Sox finishing with the best record. I think it was 108 wins, somewhere around there. It was impressive. Dodgers, it's been 30 years since their last World Series. 30 years since the last World Series win. We know they were there last year, falling to the Houston Astros. The Red Sox, I think, won it back in 2013 over the St. Louis Cardinals, took care of business there. Had some up and down years, and now they're back. They are playing some of the best baseball I've seen in a very, very long time. So, for me, I think it would be really interesting. Honestly, not to hate on the Brewers, but I definitely want the Dodgers to come out of the NLCS. I'm not even a Dodgers fan. I think pitting the Dodgers against the Red Sox or pitting the Dodgers against the Astros, to me, would be a much more intriguing matchup and a lot more fun than Brewers, Red Sox, and Brewers, Astros. I don't know. That's just me. You could take Dodgers and Red Sox, two very historic MLB teams, just the history there, and then Dodgers, Astros would be a rematch of last year. So how fun would that be? And get to see Justin Verlander go up against Clayton Kershaw at some point. A pitcher's duel. That'd be awesome too. So this is going to be really interesting here. I can't. It's hard to make a prediction now. I probably should have done predictions before the championship series started. Now the Brewers are up 2-1, and the other series are tied 1-1. But you kind of got my take on that. Who I kind of want to see show up. I want the Dodgers out of the National League. No offense to the Brewers. I think it'd be awesome to see them win a World Series, having never won one. But I think I'd like to see the Dodgers go more so than the Brewers, and then I don't care who comes out of the ALCS. But just judging from the way things are looking, I would probably lean more towards the Astros' way, just the way they've been playing baseball. And that would be really cool, too, to see them win back-to-back, or to see them fall to the Dodgers, get a little revenge there. Start our own rivalry in the MLB, much like we saw in the NBA between the Cavs and the Warriors. Something interesting there. We got a couple questions real quick before we wrap things up. Do I know who Uncle Lou is? Yeah, absolutely. We've talked a little bit. One more question about football. What is your favorite team by Florida Gamer? We won't answer that right now, but that's something that other people know, and you can find out in the comments. So, but I am a proud supporter of Arkansas State Athletics, I can tell you that. So yeah, that's about it. We've touched on NBA, and we've touched on everything we wanted to talk about, spending the bulk of our time on college football and NFL, on football in general. That's our main purpose. That's why we're called the Gridiron Expert. We're not called some generic sports talk show name. We are the Gridiron Expert. Main focus is on football. We know our basketball, we know our baseball, but football is our main focus, and that's the one that we like to focus on the more. That's why if you come check us out at the Gridiron Expert over on YouTube, and we highly recommend and highly would appreciate if you subscribe there to get us to 2,000 subscribers by the end of the year. That's what you're going to find. A bunch of college football predictions, a bunch of college football analysis and recaps, and breaking down the game that we love. And usually in the offseason, we do address some stuff in the NFL and in the NBA, and even in college basketball, especially around the time of March Madness. So make sure you check us out there. But that's about all the time we have. It's about 4:55. We're going to wrap things up. So thank you for joining us here at the Gridiron Expert here at Red Wolf Radio. I hope you enjoyed it. We will be back next Tuesday at 3 o'clock bringing you some great analysis as always. So another shout out, make sure you go follow ASU Radio, Red Wolf Radio on Twitter and Facebook and Instagram and all their social media platforms. And go check me out. If you want to stay in touch with me, I'll be on YouTube at The Gridiron Expert, on Twitter at Gridiron Expert. And so if you want more college football predictions, analysis, and news, or just sports analysis in general, that's the place to find me. Thank you for listening, and have a good night. We will see you next time on Red Wolf Radio. All right, guys. Well, I appreciate you guys coming on, doing the live stream. We had a decent amount of views. I don't know how many we had at the exact time. I know we won't be getting many once we end this live stream. Over 2 hours, man. But I appreciate you guys coming on. Great discussion, great debate. And this is something we're probably going to keep doing definitely for the next couple of weeks. And maybe not even on a set Tuesday. You can bank on us coming on here most Tuesdays for sure. And I put this out on Twitter this afternoon. I put it out on Twitter that we were going to come on and go live. So be checking Twitter. Go follow us there. And just stay tuned. Stay tuned. We're going to have our Week 8 predictions coming out very, very soon, either tonight or tomorrow. and get ready for week out of college football because it's going to be a heck of a week. We've got some great games coming. Stay tuned, though, for our 5 biggest games. We addressed a lot here on air, but we got 5 big ones coming up here very, very soon. So thank you for watching. Please continue to like, comment, and subscribe, and we will see you next time on The Gridiron Expert.